Settle in, everyone, and welcome back, this time in the 1880s America. Somewhere in a mantel clock is showing the wrong time, a coal stove is refusing to wake properly, and a horse has left a fresh contribution in the street outside. None of this has prevented the nation from feeling extremely modern. Railroads now cross enormous distances. Telephones carry voices through wires. Electric lights are beginning to glow inside selected buildings, where crowds gather beneath them and discuss whether illumination without flame can possibly be trusted. The future is clearly arriving. It has simply neglected to bring dependable plumbing, safe medicine, clean streets, or an easy method of washing a large bedsheet. Tonight, you are entering an America caught between old habits and astonishing inventions. A railway company may decide what time it is, even when the sun disagrees. A respectable public building may provide polished furniture, elegant curtains, and a large bowl intended for tobacco spit. A bottle at the drugstore may promise to calm your nerves without revealing that its main plan involves alcohol or opium. At home, the icebox depends on a man arriving with a frozen block and leaving a trail of water across the kitchen. Outside, every wagon, streetcar, delivery cart, and fire engine depends on horses, which makes the city wonderfully active and very difficult to cross without inspecting the ground. The decade is confident, busy, and slightly covered in soot. It is also deeply unequal. Life in a wealthy household with servants looks very different from life in a crowded tenement. A black railway passenger may hold the correct ticket and still be forced from the car. A native child may be taken far from home by a boarding school system designed to erase language and identity. A factory worker, farm wife, domestic servant, shop clerk, and society hostess all live inside the same decade, but they do not receive the same version of it. We will move through those worlds carefully, following the ordinary objects that carried the rules of the age. A wash basin can reveal the labor hidden inside cleanliness. A calling card can explain why friendship requires excellent timing. A factory whistle can show how completely an employer may control the day. A sincere thank you to everyone who keeps suggesting these quiet journeys into the overlooked corners of history, where progress is always being announced while someone nearby is carrying coal upstairs. If you enjoy these calm trips through strange customs, uncomfortable clothing, and inventions that create 3 new problems while solving 1 old problem, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. No pressure. It simply helps the channel more than you might imagine. Leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there. Somewhere, a sensible adult is awake after midnight learning why every respectable railway station once needed a spittoon. History does not always lead us where we expect it to go. The Quiet Hours is also on Spotify, so if you prefer to drift off through headphones while a calm voice explains how a department store could send your money traveling through the ceiling, the link is in the description. Now dim the lights, put a fan on if you have one, pull the blanket closer, turn the pillow to the cool side, and enjoy the modern luxury of a room that does not require you to trim a lamp wick before going to sleep. Would you swallow a medicine whose ingredients are treated as a business secret? And how advanced can a city truly be when its transport system needs to stop for oats? Let the present grow quiet. When you open your eyes again, it is the middle of the 1880s. Pale morning light reaches a window edged with soot. The fire has nearly gone out, the water in the pitcher is cold, and somewhere beyond the bedroom door the household has already begun carrying the 19th century up the stairs. You are awake. The coal stove has concerns. Before your feet reach the floor, the room has already divided itself into 2 climates. Near the iron stove, a little warmth remains from the night. By the door, winter has settled in with no intention of leaving. You lift the small stove lid and search through grey ash for a red glow beneath yesterday's coal. If you find one, the morning may be saved with kindling and patient work. If you do not, the entire fire must begin again. In a wealthy home, a servant may have handled this before you woke. In a working household or farmhouse, the task belongs to whoever rises first and knows where the coal scuttle has been left. The stove gives heat, boils water, and may help cook breakfast. It also produces soot, ash, and a steady demand for heavy fuel. Warmth is available. It simply arrives in pieces and must be persuaded to stay. You kneel close enough to feel the remaining heat on your face and use the poker to loosen the compacted ash. The iron answers with a dull scrape. A faint red point appears below the grey surface, then another. This is encouraging. It means the fire has not died. It has merely withdrawn from public life. You lay in a twist of paper and a few dry pieces of wood, leaving enough space for air to move. Too much fuel at once can smother the glow. Too little leaves you crouch beside the stove again 10 minutes later, offering personal support to a piece of coal. The draft must be opened carefully. Air enters through the lower vent, the kindling catches, and the first thin flame begins working upward. Smoke should move into the flue. When it does not, it may enter the room instead, and remind everyone that chimneys require attention as well as admiration. In a city house, coal may arrive through a cellar opening and be stored below stairs. Someone carries it upward in a scuttle, leaving black dust along the route. In smaller homes, the fuel may wait in a shed or bin outside. Either way, each warm room depends on repeated lifting. Coal is sold in different grades and sizes, and quality matters. Poor fuel burns badly, throws more smoke, and leaves the grate full of stubborn remains. Coal itself may be purchased by the ton when money and storage allow, or in smaller amounts when the household budget is tight. Buying little at a time usually costs more, but winter does not wait for a family to become economical in larger quantities. The cellar records the household's finances in black heaps. A family watching every expense may stretch the supply through the winter, closing rooms and gathering near one source of heat. The parlour can remain cold until company is expected. Bedrooms may receive little fire at all. Respectability prefers a warm welcome, but it does not insist that every hallway enjoy one. The stove begins to tick softly as the iron expands. Heat reaches the kettle placed on top. Soon there will be hot water for washing, coffee, or whatever breakfast the household can afford. In a farmhouse kitchen, the same range may serve nearly every part of the morning. Bread warms near it, porridge cooks above it. Damp mittens hang close enough to dry without catching fire, which is a narrow but useful distinction. The stove also becomes a place where children, adults, and animals gather, each pretending to have arrived for a separate reason. A cat may occupy the best patch of floor with the confidence of someone who has never carried coal in its life. By now, your fingers are grey at the tips. Fine dust settles beneath the nails and across the cuff. It finds the mantel, the windowsill, and any pale surface that was feeling too secure. Housewives and servants wipe constantly because coal heat brings its own weather indoors. Chimneys must be swept. Ash must be emptied into a metal container and carried away only after it has cooled. A hidden ember inside a wooden box can turn routine cleaning into a fire alarm before breakfast. Newspapers report household fires often enough for the danger to feel ordinary. Open flames, overheated pipes, loose sparks, and badly kept flues all have opportunities to become important. You learn to check the stove door, watch the draft, and never trust ash simply because it looks tired. In homes with furnaces, heat may rise through grates or ducts, but even these systems need fuel and tending. Someone must wake early, visit the basement, and feed the fire. The family upstairs enjoys warmer rooms, while the person below negotiates with iron in the dark. Technology has moved the labour out of sight. It has not yet removed it. The kettle begins to murmur. A small sound at first, then a stronger one. Warmth spreads across the kitchen floor and softens the sharp edge of the morning. You stand and brush ash from your skirt or trousers, though some of it has already joined the fabric. Outside, the street remains cold. Inside, the stove has decided to cooperate for another day. Breakfast can begin, water can heat, and the household may soon appear as though comfort arrived naturally. Only you and the coal scuttle know how much persuasion was required. The porcelain pitcher looks generous until you begin pouring. A narrow stream falls into the basin, and you immediately understand that the morning wash must be planned rather than enjoyed. Your face comes first. Your hands follow. A damp cloth reaches the neck and arms while the rest of the body waits for a more ambitious occasion. In homes without indoor plumbing, every drop has been pumped, carried, and possibly heated by hand. The same water must later be removed from the room. A full bath can be arranged in a portable tub, but it requires fuel, lifting, time, and a household willing to treat cleanliness as a minor engineering project. Indoor bathrooms are appearing in prosperous homes and modern hotels, though pipes still freeze, drains still smell, and older buildings resist improvement. For now, you dry your hands beside the weak fire. You are clean enough to be seen. The elbows have received what they can reasonably expect. The basin usually stands on a washstand beside a matching pitcher, soap dish, and small container for used water. In a comfortable bedroom, the set may be painted with flowers, offering elegance while you bend over cold water. If a servant has brought warm water, you notice the difference. Steam rises for a moment and softens the chill around your face. That warmth began below stairs, where someone filled a kettle, waited beside the range, then carried the heavy pitcher through passages and up a flight of steps. A wealthy household can make the process look effortless because its effort arrives quietly and leaves with the slop pail. In a smaller home, you may fetch the water yourself. A pump stands in the yard, at the kitchen sink, or somewhere along the street. During winter, the handle can be cold enough to punish bare fingers. The water may need to be carried in buckets that grow heavier with every stair. This gives each cup a value that modern plumbing carefully hides. You do not let the tap run while considering life. There is no tap, and life has already been considered during the walk back from the pump. Washing habits vary by region, class, season, and access. People in the 1880s are not uniformly avoiding water. They are arranging cleanliness around labour and temperature. A daily wash of the visible parts of the body is common in many households. Hands and faces receive particular attention because dirt is obvious there and because good grooming carries moral weight. Clean collars, brushed hair, and tidy skin suggest order. A muddy cuff can imply more than the weather intended. Full bathing may happen weekly more often or less often depending on the household. Hotels advertise bathrooms proudly because a fixed tub with hot and cold water is still worth mentioning. Even then, one bathroom may serve an entire floor. You walk down a corridor with soap and towel in hand, hoping the room is free and that nobody is waiting outside. Portable tubs are made from tin, copper, wood, or other materials. They can be placed near the stove in a kitchen or brought into a bedroom. The bath itself may be shallow because filling it is hard work. Each bucket must be heated and poured. When you finish, the water must be taken out again. It does not vanish through a drain unless the house has been altered to provide one. The person who enjoys the bath may not be the person who empties it, a distinction on which many comfortable mornings quietly depend. Soap is widely available, though not every kind is gentle. Strong household soaps can leave the skin tight and irritated. Finer toilet soaps are sold for personal use, sometimes perfumed. Advertisements promise softness, purity, and beauty, with the serene confidence of products that will never need to carry their own water. Tooth cleaning may involve a small brush and tooth powder. Preparations can include chalk, charcoal, soap, or other abrasive ingredients. You work carefully because dental treatment is expensive and the nearest dentist has instruments you would rather meet socially than professionally. Hair presents another calculation. Long hair takes time to wash and much longer to dry in a cold room. Brushing removes dust and distributes natural oils. A full washing is planned when the weather, fire, and day's duties permit it. You do not casually soak waist-length hair before breakfast and expect the morning to continue politely. The chamber pot beneath the bed or hidden inside a commode handles another necessity. It must be emptied and cleaned, usually by the user, a family member, or a servant. At night or during bitter weather, it feels less like an embarrassment and more like a sensible treaty with the season. Indoor water closets are common among wealthy families, but installation can expose new troubles. Poorly designed traps allow sewer gases into the home. Pipes leak. Water supplies fail. A fine bathroom can therefore offer porcelain, brass fittings, and a smell suggesting the building has open communication with the street below. You pour the used water into a slop jar and wipe the rim of the basin. The room begins returning to order. Soon the pitcher will be refilled, the towels changed, and the evidence of washing removed. You button your collar and look into the mirror. The face is fresher, the hands are clean, and the body has been managed with remarkable economy. The morning may proceed. The water has performed several duties and is now officially exhausted. A maid fastens the final support behind your waist, and the dress begins extending into territory your body never requested. During much of the 1880s, fashionable skirts gather their fullness at the back. Bustles, pads, and carefully arranged fabric create a firm shelf beneath the drapery. From the front, the figure looks narrow and controlled. From the side, it appears prepared to carry a small tea service. The corset shapes the torso while the bodice fits closely over it. Beneath the skirt, petticoats and supports influence every step. Sitting requires a careful approach because the chair and the dress have different ideas about available space. Doorways become measurements. Mud gathers near the hem. A sudden gust can expose how much private structure is required to produce public grace. You learn to turn, lower yourself, and climb stairs without looking occupied by any of it. Elegance has been achieved. Ordinary movement must now adapt. The process begins long before the outer dress appears. A camise lies against the skin, followed by drawers, stockings, corset cover, and the pieces needed to shape the skirt. The exact order varies, but none of it encourages haste. The corset supports the bust and creates the fashionable line beneath a closely fitted bodice. It is not always pulled to an extreme waist, despite later images that suggest every woman begins the day in a contest with her own ribs. Fit matters. A well-made corset can provide support, while a poor one can rub, pinch, and make a chair feel like a personal enemy. Your maid checks the fabric beneath it so no wrinkle becomes important by noon. Then she tightens the laces gradually. You breathe a little higher in the chest and wait for the garment to settle. The bustle itself changes across the decade. Early in the 1880s, the back of the skirt can rise sharply, supported by wire frameworks or padded forms. Drapery gathers over it in folds, pleats, and loops. The effect is bold enough to be noticed across a room. Fashion magazines present the silhouette with perfect confidence, as though every doorway in America has already agreed to widen. Materials range from simple pads to elaborate cages. Some fold when you sit, others require you to arrange yourself around them. The chair must be approached carefully, usually from the front, with the skirts lifted just enough to avoid crushing the structure. You do not drop into the seat, you negotiate with it. Riding in a carriage brings another set of calculations. The bustle takes up space beside you, while the long skirt must remain clear of wheels, mud, and the foot of anyone sharing the seat. Walking through a city street requires one hand near the skirt and constant attention to what lies ahead. Sidewalks may be uneven, crossings are muddy. Horses have contributed to the road in ways no fashionable hem wishes to study closely. Dress protectors and practical overskirts help, but the lower edge still gathers dust. A maid later brushes and spots the fabric because fine dresses cannot be washed like ordinary linen. Their colour, trim, and shape depend on careful maintenance. The finished outfit therefore rests on hidden labour. Someone airs it, mends it, removes stains, replaces hooks, and checks the seams where the bustle pulls hardest. A woman without a servant performs much of this work herself or relies on family members. Ready-made clothing is becoming more common, yet fitted dresses still often require alteration. Pattern companies and sewing machines make fashionable styles more available, but time remains part of the cost. A middle-class woman may spend hours sewing, trimming, and remaking garments so last year's dress can survive this year's silhouette. Fashion moves. Household budgets attempt to follow at a respectful distance. Men also dress under firm rules. High collars restrict the neck, coats follow the occasion, and respectable clothing requires brushing and care. Yet the bustle creates a particularly visible challenge because it changes the space your body occupies. Other people must account for it while pretending not to stare. Satirical cartoons enjoy the shape, often exaggerating it into shelves, tables, or convenient supports for books. The jokes are not entirely kind, but they are difficult to resist when the dress enters a narrow room before the wearer has fully arrived. Heat adds another layer to the problem. In summer, the corset, bodice, petticoats, and heavy drapery trap warmth close to the body. Fans help. Open windows help until dust or street smells enter. Social expectations do not loosen simply because the weather has become unreasonable. You may perspire, but the outer appearance should remain controlled. A damp collar is a private matter. By late afternoon, your back may ache from posture and weight. The bustle has shifted slightly. One pin has begun pressing in a place it did not occupy at breakfast. Still, you move through the drawing room with calm steps. The shape looks effortless because the effort is hidden beneath several layers and one increasingly determined expression. At last, you pause beside a chair and turn before sitting. The dress settles behind you with a faint rustle. Nothing breaks, nothing collapses. Society may continue. You have spent the day carrying a small structure on your back, and the wallpaper has been spared the details. At the table, the milk is white, The coffee is dark, and neither has been asked to explain itself to a federal inspector. Food laws remain limited, especially when compared with the rules that will come later. Milk may be watered or handled badly before reaching the household. Ground spices can be stretched with cheaper material. Butter may have travelled farther and waited longer than anyone wishes to discuss before eating. In rural homes, breakfast may come from familiar animals, gardens, and nearby fields. City families are more dependent on dealers, markets, and supply chains they cannot see. Reputation matters because labels provide little help and testing is not part of the ordinary shopping trip. Some sellers are careful. Others discover that profit improves when the customer cannot inspect the original source. You spread butter across warm bread and decide it tastes convincing. Breakfast has begun. Confidence will serve as the final ingredient. The meal itself depends on where you live and what the household can afford. On a farm, eggs may come from the yard, and milk from a cow, whose habits are known personally. In a city, food passes through more hands before reaching the kitchen. A milk wagon may arrive early, carrying cans from dairies outside town. The liquid is ladled or poured into household containers, leaving plenty of opportunities for dirt, delay, or dilution. Summer heat makes the journey harder. Without reliable refrigeration, milk can sour quickly and may carry disease if the original supply is contaminated. You do not see bacteria. You see a white liquid that smells acceptable and has arrived before the coffee cools. That is often the available test. Reformers, doctors, and city officials are beginning to worry more openly about unsafe milk, especially for children. Inspection systems exist in some places, but they are uneven. Pasteurization is not yet a normal household guarantee. Families may boil milk when illness is feared, though many simply use it as delivered. The same uncertainty reaches meat. A local butcher may know the household and depend on regular customers, which gives reputation some power. Yet slaughtering, transport, storage, and display are not controlled by one clear national standard. Meat hangs in shops where air, flies, and temperature participate freely. Salt, smoke, and curing help preserve it. Freshness still relies on speed, season, and honesty. You learn the appearance and smell of good food because there is no printed date offering reassurance from the package. Adulteration is an old problem, and the growing market makes it easier to hide. Coffee can be mixed with cheaper roasted material. Pepper may contain dust or ground fillers. Flour, sugar, mustard, and other staples can be stretched or colored. Some practices are harmless fraud. Others introduce chemicals or unsafe ingredients. Bright candy is especially appealing to children and occasionally colored with substances that deserve less enthusiasm. Newspapers and reformers expose abuses, but the Federal Pure Food and Drug Act will not arrive until the next century. For now, shoppers rely on trusted merchants, familiar brands, and the useful habit of suspicion. Packaged goods are becoming more common during the 1880s. Cans, boxes, and printed labels make food easier to transport and advertise. A brand name can create confidence across distance, though the label may tell you more about the company's decorative taste than the contents. Canned food offers convenience and longer storage, but faulty sealing or poor handling can make it dangerous. Most cans do not come with the full modern explanation of ingredients, nutrition, origin, and warnings. The package asks to be trusted because it is sealed and attractively printed. This is a persuasive argument in a world where the alternative may be a barrel everyone has been reaching into. Breakfast coffee brings its own ritual. Beans are roasted at home in some households, while prepared coffee is increasingly sold. Chicory or other substitutes may stretch the supply when money is tight. The pot stands near the stove and produces a drink strong enough to begin the day, even when flavor has taken a different route. Tea remains common, and cocoa is available, though price and habit shape the table. Bread may be baked at home or purchased from a baker. In cities, commercial bakeries are growing. Loaves can arrive by wagon, still warm and carrying fewer mysteries than the milk. The household cook or housewife develops practical knowledge. She watches for sour odors, swollen cans, mold, insects, and meat that has begun changing its plans. She stores dry goods in tins or jars and keeps perishables in the coolest available place. A cellar helps. An icebox helps when ice arrives. Clean cloth covers dishes. None of this creates certainty, but it improves the odds. Wealth gives access to better suppliers and more frequent purchases. Poverty may require buying cheaper food, using damaged goods, or stretching meals beyond ideal freshness. Hunger has a way of reducing the time available for inspection. You lift the cup and taste the coffee. It is hot, dark, and effective. The milk is not separated. The bread is fresh enough. Around you, the household continues eating without a laboratory, a federal seal, or a list of ingredients. Breakfast asks for courage in modest portions. You take another bite. Whatever is in the butter has decided to behave. By mid-morning, the kitchen icebox is beginning to lose its argument with the weather. Inside the wooden cabinet, a heavy block of ice cools milk, meat, and yesterday's food. It does not create cold. It slowly spends it. In many towns and cities, the household relies on regular ice delivery. A card placed in the window can show how large a block is needed. Later, the iceman appears with metal tongs, lifts the dripping weight from his wagon, and carries it through the house. Lakes and rivers provide much of this ice during winter. It is cut, stored beneath insulating material, then sold throughout warmer months. The system is impressive until the delivery is late. Beneath the cabinet, a pan collects meltwater and must be emptied before the kitchen floor becomes involved. You close the door quickly to preserve the remaining cold. The icebox works well, provided several men, one horse, a frozen lake, and the weather have kept their appointments. The cabinet is built to slow heat rather than defeat it. Its outer case may be wood, with an interior lined in zinc or another metal. Cork, sawdust, charcoal, or other insulating material fills the space between. The ice rests in an upper compartment so cold air can sink through the storage area below. Food sits on shelves while warm air rises toward the block, a quiet exchange that works best when nobody opens the door simply to look. You learn to decide what you need before reaching inside. Standing with the door open while considering lunch is a luxury measured in melting water. The block shrinks every hour. In summer, it may disappear with discouraging speed. The household watches its size because meat, milk, butter, and cooked dishes depend on it. A late delivery can change the menu. Food that seems safe in the morning may require immediate cooking by afternoon. Leftovers are handled with caution, especially when the room is hot. The icebox does not make spoilage impossible. It merely asks it to wait. Harvesting natural ice is a large winter business. Workers cut channels across frozen ponds, rivers, and lakes, then divide the surface into blocks. Horses and machinery help move the heavy pieces toward ice houses. Packed tightly and covered with sawdust or other insulation, the ice can last well into warm weather. From there, it travels by wagon, rail, or ship. American ice is sold across cities and even sent long distances to warmer regions. A household kitchen therefore contains a piece of winter that may have traveled farther than the family. The iceman is a familiar figure. His wagon announces itself with wheels, hooves, and the sound of iron tools against frozen blocks. A household card in the window may display a number, indicating the desired weight. He cuts the piece to size, grips it with tongs, then lifts it onto a leather shoulder pad or carries it directly. Water runs down his clothes and onto the floor. In an apartment building, he climbs stairs with a load that makes every landing feel unnecessary. Children may follow the wagon hoping for chips of ice. The iceman may hand them small pieces on a hot day, producing more joy than the household has received from the entire cabinet. Once the block is inside, the practical work continues. Meltwater drains into a pan or pipe. If the pan is forgotten, it overflows. A slow leak can stain wood, damage flooring, and create the smell of dampness near stored food. The interior must be wiped and cleaned because cold does not prevent spills, mold, or the private ambitions of old gravy. Shelves are arranged to allow air to circulate. Strong-smelling foods are covered. The butter receives special protection unless everyone wants coffee, cake, and morning toast to remember last night's onions. Iceboxes vary in size and quality. Wealthier homes may own large models with separate compartments. Hotels, restaurants, butchers, and grocers use bigger cold storage systems. Poor households may buy ice in smaller amounts, share arrangements, rely on a cellar, or purchase food daily because storage is limited. In rural areas, an ice house may stand on the property if winter ice can be harvested and stored. Families without that resource use spring houses, cool cellars, wells, salting, smoking, drying, or canning. Refrigeration is therefore only one part of food preservation, not yet an electric appliance humming invisibly in every kitchen. The icebox shapes the household schedule. Deliveries must be watched for. Money must be set aside. Food should be purchased in amounts the cabinet can hold. On a very hot day, the cook checks the block and adjusts dinner accordingly. The household may complain when the milk turns, though it rarely directs this concern toward the weather, the delivery route, or the laws of heat. The kitchen receives the blame because kitchens are often expected to negotiate with nature on behalf of everyone else. You open the door once more and feel the cool air settle over your hand. The milk is still safe. The butter remains firm. A dish from yesterday sits under a cloth, waiting for a second appearance at the table. You shut the cabinet quickly and slide the drip pan into place. The ice continues melting in silence. Cold has entered the home, but it is being paid by the pound. Laundry does not begin quietly. Water heats in a boiler while steam gathers near the ceiling and damp clothing waits in heavy piles. You soak, soap, scrub, lift, and rinse each piece. Stains receive direct attention because clothing costs too much to surrender after one unfortunate meal. White fabric may be boiled. Collars and cuffs need special work. A wringer removes much of the water, though its rollers must be treated with respect. Fingers, buttons, and loose fabric can enter together, and the machine has no strong opinion about which one should emerge first. Once washed, the clothes travel outside to a line or remain indoors if the weather refuses to help. Winter may freeze them stiff before they dry. Wealthier homes employ servants or send laundry elsewhere, but the labor does not disappear. It moves into another building or another woman's day. By afternoon, the room smells of soap and wet linen. Clean clothing has been achieved with the ease of a small flood. Laundry often claims a particular day because it needs the kitchen, the fire, and most of the available strength. Monday becomes wash day in many homes. Following Sunday, when better clothes have been worn and the household has created another week's worth of fabric requiring judgment. Preparation may begin the night before. Clothes are sorted and soaked. Water must be pumped or carried. Fuel must be ready because the boiler cannot heat itself through moral encouragement. A large household can produce enough shirts, linen, and underclothes to make the pile look less like washing and more like a decision the family has made against you. The dirtiest pieces are treated first or soaked separately. Homemade soap can be made from fat and lye, though the strength varies and careless handling burns the skin. Commercial soaps are widely sold, offering more predictable results and attractive wrappers that never show swollen hands. You rub fabric against a washboard, working soap through cuffs and collars where dirt gathers. The board may be wood, metal, or glass. Its ridged surface saves some effort compared with rubbing cloth against itself, but not enough to make the task restful. Your shoulders begin to feel each shirt individually. Boiling helps whiten sturdy cotton and linen. Garments go into the wash boiler with water and soap, then are stirred or lifted with a stick. Steam clouds the windows. The kitchen grows hot even in winter and almost heroic in summer. Coloured fabrics require more care because dyes may run. Wool can shrink, or felt if treated badly. Fine garments may be spot cleaned, brushed, or sent to a professional cleaner rather than placed beside ordinary household washing. Clothing is an investment. A ruined dress is not replaced casually because the wash day water became enthusiastic. Rinsing takes clean water, often more than once. This means additional pumping, carrying, and heating. Bluing may be added to the final rinse for white fabrics. A small amount of blue colour makes yellowed cloth appear brighter, though too much produces a result suggesting the family has joined the navy. Starch stiffens collars, cuffs, shirt fronts, petticoats, and other pieces expected to hold a proper shape. It must be mixed and applied evenly. The garment then waits for ironing, which will arrive later with its own heat and labour. Before that, the water must be removed. Hand wringing is hard on wrists and large fabric. A mechanical wringer, also called a mangle in some forms, passes cloth between rollers turned by a crank. You feed one edge carefully and guide the garment through. Buttons can break, seams can twist. Fingers must remain clear. The machine is useful in the way many 19th century devices are useful. It reduces one kind of strain while creating a new reason to pay attention. Outside, lines stretch between posts, buildings, or whatever support the yard provides. You lift each wet piece and fasten it with wooden pegs. Sheets catch the wind and pull against your arms. In clear weather, Sunlight and moving air help freshen the cloth. City soot can settle on it before it dries. A neighbour's chimney may contribute more than warmth. Rain sends everyone running outside because a second soaking has not been scheduled. During winter, garments stiffen on the line. They can be brought indoors partly frozen, shaped like the people who once wore them but far less cooperative. Drying racks near the stove help, though fabric placed too close to flame creates a risk no household needs while already tired. The laundry room of a large home may be separate from the kitchen, with coppers for boiling, tubs, tables, and room for several servants. A laundress may be hired for the day or work regularly in the household. Her skill matters. She knows how to treat lace, preserve colour, remove stains, and iron difficult pieces without scorching them. Hotels, hospitals, boarding houses, and commercial laundries handle enormous quantities. Steam-powered machinery is growing in industrial laundries, but workers still perform heavy, hot, repetitive labour around it. Clean linen arrives in bedrooms looking calm. The room where it became clean is anything but calm. Tomorrow, clean clothes will be worn, stained, and returned to the household with no sense of apology. For now, the sheets smell fresh and the collars stand correctly. Wash day has succeeded. It has also occupied nearly every object and person within reach. A knock sounds before you are ready to leave, and commerce steps directly into the morning. The milkman follows his route. A baker may offer bread from a wagon. A peddler carries brushes, thread, household tools, or a device he promises will remove half the work from your life. This claim becomes less convincing when he needs 20 minutes to explain the handle. In towns and rural districts, travelling sellers connect households with goods that may be difficult to reach otherwise. Regular delivery is useful when stores are distant or transport is limited. It also means the front step becomes a place of bargaining, refusal, gossip, and occasional surrender. You inspect an object you did not know you needed, consider the coins in your pocket, and begin wishing the conversation would end. At last, the seller moves on, the door closes. You now own a new brush and less confidence in your ability to say no. Before the street becomes crowded, familiar delivery wagons begin their routes. Milk arrives early because it does not improve while waiting in the sun. In many places, the milkman measures it from a can into the household's pitcher or other container. Bottle delivery is growing, but it is not yet universal. Bread may come from a bakery wagon. Ice, coal, meat, vegetables, and groceries can also reach the home through regular dealers. Each wagon has its own sound. Hooves slow near the gate. A bell rings. Wheels stop against the curb. The household learns to recognize these noises because missing the delivery can rearrange the entire day. The system saves you a journey, especially when shops are distant or the family lacks a carriage. It also brings sellers close enough to observe who is home, whether the household is buying less than usual, and which neighbour has ordered something interesting. Commerce and local information travel together. A regular tradesman may extend credit, remember preferences, and hear news before the newspaper prints it. This can be helpful until your private shortage of coal becomes part of the neighbourhood's general understanding by lunchtime. Peddlers and travelling salesmen offer a less predictable visit. Some carry goods in packs. Others arrive with wagons filled with tinware, cloth, clocks, patent tools, notions, or household inventions. Rural households may rely on them for small items that would otherwise require a long trip. The peddler opens a case and reveals rows of needles, combs, ribbons, and buttons. Each object looks practical when arranged neatly in the morning light. A person who came to the door intending to buy nothing can soon be discussing the unusual strength of a new fastening device. Salesmanship depends on demonstration. A carpet sweeper glides across the floor, a knife is sharpened, a stain remover is applied to a cloth the salesman has wisely brought himself. The product performs well under conditions he controls. Whether it will behave the same way next Tuesday is a matter for the household and fate. Door-to-door trade also carries risk. Newspapers warn about fraud, false stories, and strangers who use sales calls to inspect a house. You do not invite everyone inside. A screen door, porch, or threshold creates a useful boundary. Yet politeness matters, especially in smaller communities where the seller may know relatives or return regularly. Refusing firmly without appearing rude becomes a social skill. You listen, ask the price, and begin moving your body slowly toward the door. The salesman interprets this as interest and produces a second model. Payment may be made in cash, on account, or through installments for larger goods. Sewing machines, organs, books, and other expensive items can be sold by agents who visit homes and explain payment plans. This expands access to manufactured goods while creating new monthly obligations. The machine enters the parlour before the final payment has fully entered the budget. Mail order catalogues are also changing rural shopping. Companies such as Montgomery Ward send lists and illustrated pages through the post, allowing families to choose goods without relying entirely on local stores. The catalogue may be studied at the kitchen table, its pages offering tools, clothing, household supplies, and objects nobody knew existed until the picture made absence feel personal. An order travels by mail and returns by rail or express. The front door remains part of the transaction even when the salesman never appears. Not every caller sells goods. Rag collectors buy or exchange for old cloth, bones, bottles, and metal. Repairmen sharpen knives, mend umbrellas, fix pots, or restore chairs. Their work reflects a culture in which worn objects are often repaired rather than replaced. A cracked pan still has years left if someone can solder it. A broken handle is an inconvenience, not a reason to discard the entire tool. The caller takes the object away or works nearby while children watch with the attention normally reserved for accidents. By midday, several exchanges may have happened without you travelling farther than the gate. Milk is on the table, bread is cooling. A repaired kettle stands near the stove. The new brush rests beside the door, already looking less essential than it did in the peddler's hand. You count the remaining coins and hear another wagon moving along the street. The front door has provided convenience, choice, and a surprising amount of conversation. It may now return briefly to its earlier profession of keeping people out. Outside, the road is alive with hooves. Horses pull delivery wagons, streetcars, private carriages, fire engines, and nearly every heavy object that the growing city needs to move. Their shoes strike stone and packed earth. Harness bells mix with drivers' voices. Wheels throw up dust in dry weather and cut through mud after rain. The smell is immediate because thousands of working animals eat, rest, fall ill, and leave evidence directly in the street. Cleaners fight a daily battle against a supply that never closes for lunch. Crossing the road requires judgment. Traffic does not follow neat modern lanes, and a startled horse can change direction before the driver has completed a useful thought. Your shoes avoid one problem and approach another. The city feels energetic, crowded, and modern. It also spends a surprising amount of effort removing what its transportation system has recently produced. The largest cities depend on horses so completely that almost every ordinary movement begins with them. Food reaches markets behind them, coal arrives behind them. Building materials, furniture, mail, passengers, and refuse all travel by hoof. A streetcar may run on rails, but the car itself is still pulled by a team. The rails reduce friction and allow the horses to move more passengers, which feels wonderfully efficient until one animal slips on wet stone and the entire line stops to reconsider progress. Drivers call out warnings and snap reins. Bells announce approaching cars. Pedestrians learn to judge speed by sound because looking in one direction does not guarantee safety from another. There are no traffic lights arranging the confusion into polite intervals. A policeman may direct movement at a busy crossing, though much depends on alertness and the willingness of drivers to cooperate. Children run between wagons. Dogs investigate wheels. Bicycles begin appearing with their own ideas about space. You wait at the curb, lift your skirt or watch your coat, and choose a moment that seems less dangerous than the others. The street surface changes from place to place. Wealthier districts may have stone blocks, brick, macadam, or wooden paving. Elsewhere, dirt roads turn to deep mud during rain and hard dust during dry weather. Wooden blocks can soften noise but absorb unpleasant material from the traffic above. Cobblestones are durable and hard on wheels, hooves, and anyone whose carriage lacks good springs. Every surface collects manure and urine from working animals. A busy horse may produce many pounds of manure each day, and a city with tens of thousands of horses receives the result continuously. Sweepers and carts remove what they can. Some manure is sold or taken for fertilizer. The rest mixes with straw, rubbish, and mud, until the road develops a texture best understood through careful footwear. In summer, dried material becomes dust. Wheels and hooves lift it into the air where it settles on windows, food, clothing, and faces. Shopkeepers sweep their entrances repeatedly. Housewives close windows and then complain about heat instead. No choice is entirely successful. Rain creates a different problem. gutters fill, crossings become slick, wooden skirts protect fashionable hems, and raised stepping stones or street crossings help in some places. A gentleman may offer a hand. A woman may gather her dress and step quickly, hoping the next carriage does not arrive before the current puddle has been settled. Horses themselves require enormous support. Stables occupy valuable city land. Hay and oats must be delivered. Blacksmiths shoe the animals. Harness makers repair leather. Veterinarians, stable hands, drivers, and hostlers keep the system moving. A working horse can suffer from overwork, poor treatment, injury, or disease. Animal welfare organizations are growing and objecting to cruelty, though enforcement remains uneven. When a horse collapses in the street, traffic builds around it. Removing a sick or dead animal is difficult, public, and impossible to disguise with cheerful language. The city's power source is alive, which means it can tire at the least convenient moment. Fire departments rely on trained teams that respond to bells and harness themselves quickly. Delivery horses learn routes. Streetcar animals follow repeated lines until the work becomes almost mechanical. Yet every horse still has fear, pain, appetite, and temperament. A steam whistle, loose paper, or sudden noise can cause a bolt. Carriages overturn. Pedestrians scatter. The driver uses reins and voice, but control is never absolute. You do not stand directly behind an unfamiliar horse, and you do not assume a quiet animal has signed a lasting agreement. Wealth changes how you experience all this. A prosperous family may own a carriage and employ a coachman. Others hire cabs, ride the horse car, walk, or depend on delivery wagons. Owning horses requires stable space, feed, care, and staff. The carriage itself is only the visible part of a costly arrangement. A private ride looks graceful because someone else has already cleaned the stall. By late afternoon, traffic thickens again. Workers, shoppers, carts, and carriages press through the same streets. The air carries sweat, leather, dust, smoke, and stable odours. You cross at last and reach the opposite pavement, with both shoes still acceptable. Behind you, a wagon rattles past and a street cleaner begins another round. The city has moved thousands of people and tons of goods since morning. It has also left a detailed record on the road. The hotel lobby contains polished wood, upholstered chairs, and a broad metal bowl resting near the wall. The bowl is not decorative. Chewing tobacco is common among men, and public buildings provide spittoons so the result will not reach the carpet, at least in theory. Railway stations, offices, saloons, courthouses, and other male spaces may keep several within easy reach. Aim remains a private matter, cleaning does not. Smoke from cigars and pipes hangs above the room, while chewing tobacco creates a separate concern below. Medical reformers increasingly object to public spitting as knowledge of infection grows, but ordinary habits rarely vanish the moment evidence becomes inconvenient. You choose a seat several feet away and gather your clothing close. The building offers comfort, conversation, and a place to deposit tobacco juice. Civilization has thought of nearly everything. The practice begins with tobacco prepared for chewing rather than smoking. A man places a piece between cheek and gum, works it slowly, and produces more liquid than polite conversation can reasonably absorb. Swallowing tobacco juice is unpleasant and can cause sickness, so the user spits. Outdoors, the ground receives it. Indoors, managers provide a target. The spittoon may be brass, iron, ceramic, or enameled metal. Some are wide and low, others rise on stands. Better establishments choose designs that match the room, proving that even this object can be invited into interior decoration if society becomes determined enough. Placement matters. A vessel sits near chairs, desks, counters, or stoves where men gather. In a saloon, several may line the floor. In a railway waiting room, they stand within easy reach of passengers who have already spent hours breathing smoke and coal dust. Offices and legislatures may provide them beside desks. Barbershops use them because customers remain seated long enough for habits to continue. The result becomes part of the room's daily maintenance. Someone must empty, wash, and disinfect each one. This work falls to janitors, porters, cleaners, hotel staff, or domestic servants. It is rarely described in advertisements for respectable public life. The polished brass appears in the lobby. The person scrubbing it appears much less often. Not everyone uses the target accurately. Satirical writing and reform campaigns complain about stained floors and walls around spittoons. A badly placed vessel creates more work than it prevents. Good aim may be treated as ordinary courtesy, which is a strikingly modest standard for civilization, but at least gives the cleaner something to hope for. Cuspidors, another common name for spittoons, also appear in homes. A parlour or office used by male guests may keep one near the hearth. Women chew tobacco too in some regions and communities, though public use is more strongly associated with men. Social rules shape who may spit openly and where. A gentleman can perform the act in a hotel lobby without losing his standing. A lady is expected to avoid giving the room comparable information about her mouth. Tobacco smoke fills the same spaces. Cigarettes are growing in popularity, but cigars and pipes remain common. Gaslight, coal stoves, and poor ventilation already burden the air. Smoke settles into curtains, hair, and upholstery, joining dust from the street. A hotel lobby can therefore look elegant while carrying the scent of tobacco, wool coats, damp boots, and whatever the stove has recently contributed. You may not smoke or chew, but the room has arranged a shared experience. Public health concerns grow as germ theory becomes better known. Tuberculosis is a particular fear. Saliva from an infected person can spread disease, and public spitting becomes a target for reformers. Anti-spitting ordinances appear in American cities toward the end of the 19th century and become more common later. Signs warn people not to spit on floors or sidewalks. Enforcement is difficult because the habit is old, widespread, and performed quickly. A law may declare the practice dangerous. A man who has chewed tobacco for 30 years may regard this as fresh information arriving without proper authority. Spittoons remain in use as a compromise. If people will spit, officials prefer the result contained and cleaned. Yet a shared vessel can still be dirty, and emptying it creates exposure for workers. Disinfectants may be added. Sawdust, sand, or other material can help manage the contents. None of this improves the object enough to make it welcome near your shoes. Etiquette guides sometimes address spitting in the same calm tone used for introductions and dinner manners. The instruction is generally to avoid offensive behaviour, use the proper receptacle, and never make noise. Even bodily waste can be placed under the care of good breeding. The ideal gentleman does not stop producing tobacco juice. He simply handles it with discretion. You sit near the window and watch men enter from the street. One removes his hat, another warms himself by the stove, a third uses the spittoon without interrupting the conversation. Nobody reacts because the action is normal. That is what makes it strange from your modern chair. The object does not shock the room. It supports the room's routine. Nearby, a porter wipes mud from the floor and shifts the brass vessel slightly farther from a chair leg. By evening, it will need emptying again. The lobby continues presenting itself as comfortable and refined. You keep your skirt close and decide not to inspect the carpet too carefully. Respectability is sitting all around you. Some of it has missed the bowl. By late morning, you enter a large department store and find several kinds of modern life gathered beneath one roof. Clothing, household goods, fabric, furniture, and small luxuries fill separate counters and floors. Mirrors brighten the space. Elevators carry shoppers upward. Clerks arrange goods to make looking feel almost as important as buying. When you finally pay, the transaction may continue without you. Some stores employ cash boys and girls who hurry payments toward a central cashier. Others use mechanical carriers, wire systems, or tubes to move money and receipts through the building. Your coins leave the counter, travel overhead, and return as change after passing through rooms you cannot see. The system saves each clerk from keeping a separate cash drawer. It also makes a simple purchase feel like a message sent through the machinery of progress. You stand beneath the wires and wait. Somewhere above your hat, the money is receiving more exercise than you are. The department store is still a relatively new kind of public world. Earlier shops often specialize in one trade, keep much of their stock behind the counter, and expect a customer to ask directly for what is needed. The great store gathers many departments together and turns browsing into part of the experience. You can compare fabric, gloves, hats, household goods, and furniture without crossing half the city. Wide aisles and elaborate displays invite you to remain. Large windows present carefully arranged goods to the street, allowing desire to begin before the door opens. For middle-class women, these stores offer a respectable place to spend time in public. A woman may shop, meet a friend, eat in a restaurant, rest in a waiting room, or use facilities provided for customers. The surroundings are designed to feel safe and refined. Floors shine. Counters gleam. Clerks dress neatly and speak with professional patience, at least while a supervisor is near. The store sells goods, but it also sells the pleasure of being surrounded by abundance. Fixed prices are becoming an important feature. In smaller shops, bargaining or personal judgment can shape the amount charged. Department stores increasingly mark goods at set prices, promising fairness and speed. This also allows a customer to look without beginning a negotiation that may end with both sides remembering the experience. Sales and seasonal promotions draw crowds. Newspaper advertisements announce new stock and special bargains. The store's name becomes a public promise that the goods are fashionable, the price is reasonable, and the building unlikely to misplace you for more than an afternoon. Behind the polished counters is a large labor force. Saleswomen and salesmen stand for long hours. Cash children carry payments. Stock workers move boxes. Seamstresses alter garments. Porters, cleaners, elevator operators, messengers, and delivery drivers keep the building functioning. Young employees may work for low wages under close supervision. A customer sees a ribbon placed neatly on the counter. Several workers have already unpacked, measured, priced, moved, and dusted it. The central cash system is meant to control money and reduce theft or error. Instead of each clerk making change, the payment travels to a cashier. A cash boy or girl may run it by hand, weaving between counters with a small container. Mechanical systems promise greater speed. Some use overhead wires with small carriers that shoot toward the cash desk. Others move containers along tracks. Pneumatic tubes use air pressure to send money and receipts through pipes. The exact system differs by store and date, but the effect is similar. Your purchase leaves the counter and disappears into the building's private circulation. You wait beside the clerk while the carrier travels. A bell or click may announce its return. Inside are the receipt and change, assuming the amount, mechanism, and cashier have all remained in agreement. Customers often find the system entertaining. Children watch the carriers fly overhead. Adults admire the efficiency, while quietly checking that the correct coins have returned. The store turns accounting into a small public performance. Elevators add to the sense of wonder. An operator closes the gate and carries shoppers between floors. Some stores install grand staircases as well, encouraging customers to see the building itself as part of the outing. Electric lighting begins extending shopping hours and brightening interior spaces beyond what windows and gaslight can provide. Mirrors multiply the light and the number of hats visible at once. Music, demonstrations, and decorative displays make commerce feel like culture with price tags attached. Not everyone is welcomed equally. Class and race shape how customers are treated. Black shoppers may face discrimination, exclusion from facilities, or suspicion even when they have money to spend. Working-class visitors may feel the weight of clerks judging clothes and speech. The store presents itself as a democratic world of fixed prices, but the social rules at the door remain less evenly marked. Women working behind the counters also face strict expectations about appearance, conduct, and hours. Modern retail creates new freedom and new forms of supervision in the same brightly lit room. At the counter, your carrier finally returns. The clerk opens it, counts the change, and hands over a wrapped parcel tied with string. You check the coins and tuck them away. The entire process has taken several workers, a mechanical track, and a journey above the sales floor. You have purchased a pair of gloves. The money has had the more adventurous day. After shopping, social duty waits on a small rectangle of stiff paper. When you visit a respectable home, your calling card is handed to a servant before you are admitted. The card identifies you and proves that the visit has been properly attempted. If the person is not receiving callers, you leave it behind and withdraw without forcing friendship through the front door. If you are welcomed inside, the visit must last long enough to show warmth, but not so long that the household begins quietly reconsidering its hospitality. Advice books try to clarify the rules, though customs vary and every explanation seems capable of producing another concern. The drawing room is prepared for this brief exchange. You discuss health, weather, family news, and whatever nearby object can safely be admired. Then you rise at the correct moment, or a moment that appears correct from your chair. The card remains on its tray. Sociability has been completed in writing. The card itself is usually plain enough to show good taste without appearing hungry for attention. Thick paper, neat engraving, and a clear name say more than decoration should. A card crowded with flourishes risks looking as though the printer has become emotionally involved. You keep several in a case because arriving without one can make a proper visit awkward before it begins. The servant who receives it becomes the first gatekeeper. She carries the card upstairs or into another room while you wait in the hall, surrounded by umbrellas, coats, and the quiet possibility that the household is pretending not to be home. Not at home does not always mean the person has left the building. It may mean she is not receiving callers, is unwell, or has decided that the afternoon cannot survive another conversation about mutual acquaintances. The phrase protects privacy while allowing everyone to remain polite. You accept it without asking whether you just heard movement above. A formal call is often made during recognized afternoon hours when the household has arranged itself for visitors. The front room is tidied, a servant is prepared to answer. The lady of the house wears something suitable for receiving, which is less elaborate than evening dress, but still far beyond clothing chosen merely because it is comfortable. You enter with hat and gloves properly managed and take the seat indicated. The visit begins almost at once because its limited length gives every silence greater importance. Calling customs vary across American cities, smaller towns, regions, and social circles. Some households follow detailed rules closely. Others use the card more simply, as a practical announcement of presence. You may leave cards after a dinner, wedding, illness, bereavement, or arrival in a new neighborhood. The small rectangle helps maintain relationships when time or uncertainty makes a longer meeting difficult. Marks on a card can carry meaning, although etiquette books do not always agree on the system. A folded corner may show that you came in person rather than sending a servant. Initials can indicate congratulations, condolence, farewell, or thanks. This sounds efficient until you realize that several tiny letters now carry the burden of human emotion. The safer approach is often to write a short note when the meaning truly matters. A card can show respect. It cannot always explain whether you are deeply sorry or merely passing the house on the way to the dentist. During the visit, refreshments may appear, though an ordinary call does not require a full meal. Tea or a small cake can soften the conversation. You accept what is offered without treating the table as the main reason for coming, even when the cake is the first honest pleasure of the visit. Introductions are managed carefully. Rank, age, and sex can affect who is presented to whom. Names must be heard correctly, which becomes difficult when the servant has announced them from the doorway and the room contains several people who all appear to know one another already. You smile, bow, and hope the person beside the mantel is the cousin you were told about, rather than a stranger who happens to own a similar beard. Conversation stays within safe limits. Health may be mentioned without detail. Travel, books, concerts, and weather are reliable. Politics can be risky, religion more so, and money is rarely improved by direct mention. Gossip enters by side doors. A neighbour's absence may be described as concern. A marriage can be examined through remarks about how seldom the couple has been seen together. No one announces that a reputation is being measured. The measuring simply happens beside the tea tray. The end of the call requires judgment. Etiquette manuals may suggest a brief visit, but real practice depends on circumstance. You watch for signs. The hostess shifts slightly. Another visitor arrives. A servant enters with a message that may be genuine or merciful. You rise, offer a pleasant farewell, and leave without making the departure feel like escape. At the front door, your gloves are in place and your expression remains calm. Outside, the air feels unexpectedly free. The call has confirmed goodwill, exchanged news, and tested everyone's ability to remain agreeable. Your card stays behind among others on a tray. Friendship has been maintained. Very little had to be said directly, which is generally how respectable society prefers it. The postman arrives carrying a bundle that can alter the day without entering the house. One envelope contains an invitation. Another holds a bill. A third bears handwriting you recognize immediately and would prefer to recognize after tea. In large cities, several deliveries may occur during the day, allowing news and obligation to move with remarkable speed. Railways help letters travel across the country, while the telegraph carries urgent messages in a form too brief for graceful avoidance. You open the harmless note first. The difficult one waits beside your hand. Letters require judgment because silence, delay, warmth, and formality all carry meaning. Paper can hold affection and comfort. but it can also preserve a poorly chosen sentence for years. You dip the pen, begin a careful reply, and discover that honesty requires editing before it can travel. The postal system has made distance smaller. It has also allowed a relative in another state to complicate your afternoon. In a city with free delivery, the carrier may signal at the door because most houses do not have the familiar mailbox waiting outside. A knock, whistle, or bell brings someone from the kitchen or an upstairs room. The carrier stands with a leather bag and a route that does not improve while you search for slippers. Home delivery has existed in selected cities since the Civil War and is spreading as urban populations grow. Rural households are less fortunate. Many still collect their mail at a post office, often inside a general store where letters, groceries, local news, and opinions about your family can all be obtained during the same visit. The envelope in your hand has already travelled through a large system. Railway postal clerks sort mail while trains are moving, standing before cases filled with small compartments and learning complicated routes by memory. Bags are exchanged at stations, and some are dropped where the train does not make a full stop. A letter that looks quiet on the breakfast table may have crossed states in a room that never stopped shaking. Postage is cheap enough to make regular correspondence possible for many families. Postcards offer an inexpensive choice when privacy is not required. Uncoast. Their message sits openly beside the address, available to postal workers and any relative who reaches the hall first. Anything delicate deserves an envelope, and perhaps a drawer with a key. Writing itself is a small physical ceremony. You choose paper suited to the relationship. Business correspondence should be clear. Social notes require the correct degree of warmth. A close friend may receive several pages. A distant acquaintance should not be forced to climb through the whole week. The steel pen must be dipped and guided across the paper without leaving a blot at the exact point where your feelings were meant to look controlled. Blotting paper waits nearby. Your handwriting matters because it reveals education, care, and whether the train of thought has recently left the track. A good letter sounds natural despite being revised in the mind before the pen moves. You answer the invitation first. Acceptance should be prompt if you intend to go. A refusal needs enough explanation to sound sincere, but not so much that the explanation becomes a second event. Illness, family duty, and prior engagements are useful. Simply writing that the evening does not appeal would save ink, but it would also create another letter later. The bill is easier because money has clearer grammar. You place it beside the household accounts and hope clarity will somehow reduce the amount. The third envelope remains. It may be from a sister asking for help, a cousin planning a visit, or a parent who has converted concern into 3 pages of instruction. Letters let people speak without interruption, which is comforting until the person speaking has strong views about your marriage or housekeeping. You read slowly. A sentence that looks harmless at first develops a sharper edge on the second pass. Tone is difficult on paper. A joke can arrive as criticism. Advice can resemble accusation. A short reply may seem cold, while a long one risks saying the honest part by accident. You begin with a calm greeting and work toward the matter carefully. The telegraph handles urgency differently. A message is taken to an office, sent through electrical signals, and delivered in written form. Charges often depend on the number of words, which encourages language stripped of comfort. Births, deaths, illness, business, and travel changes arrive in sentences that waste nothing. Come at once has no room for explanation and no interest in the recipient's afternoon. A telegram at the door can produce immediate fear because happy news seldom insists on such speed without warning. Yet it also connects families during emergencies and allows companies to act across distance. Modern communication has become fast enough for worry to arrive before the kettle boils. Letters travel more gently. They can be held, reread, hidden, tied with ribbon, or burned. Sweethearts save pages until the folds weaken. A letter becomes an object carrying the hand of someone absent, which is why even ordinary remarks can matter years later. You finish your reply and read it once more. One phrase is too warm, another is too firm. You change both and discover that the result says almost what politeness expected before you began. The page is folded, sealed, and addressed. Soon it will leave the house in the carrier's bag. Distance has been defeated with paper, rail, and handwriting. The relative remains undefeated. In an office, hotel, or prosperous home, a telephone hangs on the wall like an object waiting to prove a rumour. To place a call, You signal the exchange and wait for an operator. She answers, listens to the name or number you request, and physically connects your line to another. There is no dial and no private path around this conversation. The connection arrives through clicks, faint buzzing, and the distant possibility of a voice. You speak into the transmitter while holding a separate receiver near your ear. The person at the other end may sound as though they are speaking from inside a cupboard. Words disappear. Both sides repeat themselves. Privacy depends partly on the system and partly on anyone else who may share or handle the line. Yet the experience remains astonishing. A human voice has travelled without a train, carriage, or envelope. The future is speaking through the wall. It would like you to speak more loudly. Alexander Graham Bell received his telephone patent only in 1876, and commercial exchanges began appearing soon afterward. By the 1880s, networks are growing quickly in American cities, but service remains expensive and uneven. A hotel can advertise connection with offices and railway stations. In an ordinary household, the monthly charge can still feel ambitious, especially when a perfectly serviceable child is available to carry a note several streets away. Early wall telephones often use a small hand crank to generate a signal. You turn it, hear the mechanism respond, and wait for the exchange. The operator sits before a switchboard lined with openings, cords, plugs, and small signals that show which subscriber wants attention. She inserts one cord into your line and another into the line you request. If the person is available and the connection behaves, the conversation can begin. If not, you wait while the operator tries again, perhaps with several other callers also demanding service. The work requires memory, speed, clear speech, and patience. Telephone companies increasingly hire young women as operators after discovering that customers prefer voices trained to sound calm and polite. This creates a new kind of paid work, though the standards are strict. An operator may be expected to sit upright for long hours, answer quickly, avoid private conversation, and remain pleasant while subscribers blame her for weather, wires, and relatives who refuse to answer. A small exchange may be intimate enough for the operator to know most subscribers by name. You ask for the doctor, the railway office, or a local business rather than consulting a long list of numbers. In larger systems, numbers become more useful as the network grows. Either way, the operator occupies the center of the call. She knows who is trying to reach whom and may hear enough of the opening words to understand why. The physical line also shapes what you can hear. Insulation, distance, weather, and nearby electrical activity can interfere. Voices may fade or crackle. Two conversations can seem to overlap. You press the receiver closer and speak into the fixed mouthpiece, which means your body must remain near the wall. The telephone does not allow you to wander comfortably through the room. It has chosen a location and expects the conversation to respect it. In an office, this may be convenient. In a home, it can place every private matter within reach of the hall. A caller wishing to discuss money, illness, or family trouble must lower the voice while remaining close enough to be heard at the other end. The result is a form of privacy that depends on everyone nearby becoming suddenly interested in the wallpaper. Shared lines can make the problem worse. Several subscribers may use the same circuit, especially outside dense urban centers. Each household may have a particular ringing pattern. You are meant to answer only your own. A click on the line can suggest that someone else has lifted a receiver. It may also be a neighbor who has discovered a strong concern for the quality of the connection. Long-distance service remains limited during much of the decade. Local calls are the telephone's main strength, and even these may reach only businesses and homes within the exchange area. Telegraph lines still handle many urgent messages across greater distances. By the end of the 1880s, improved systems are beginning to connect cities, but a voice travelling far remains unusual and costly. The telephone has not yet made the country instantly conversational. It has made the nearest portion of it louder. Etiquette must develop almost as quickly as the wires. You identify yourself because the person cannot see who is speaking. You avoid shouting unless the line requires it, though most lines appear to require it at some point. Business calls should be brief. Social calls can continue longer, which creates concern that the line is being occupied while someone else has an actual emergency. There is no familiar way to end gracefully. One person says goodbye. The other adds a final detail. The first remembers something. The apparatus waits on the wall while human beings discover that new technology has not improved their ability to finish a conversation. At last, the business is settled. You thank the operator, replace the receiver, and step away. The room feels quiet after the faint electrical hum. A voice has crossed town in seconds, and no horse has been fed. The achievement is remarkable. The operator has also heard enough to know that your parcel will arrive on Thursday. As daylight begins to fade, a crowd gathers near a building that does not intend to become dark. Electric lamps are still rare enough to attract attention. Arc lights already shine in some streets and public spaces, while incandescent systems begin serving selected businesses, hotels, theatres, and wealthy homes. In 1882, Edison's Pearl Street station starts supplying electricity to part of Lower Manhattan. Most households continue using gas, kerosene, candles, or whatever daylight remains near the window. Electric light therefore feels less like a utility and more like a public demonstration. People admire its brightness and wonder about the wires hidden in walls. Some fear fire or shocks, others dislike the colour. You stand beneath a lamp that burns without an open flame and watch the room remain visible after sunset. Modernity has arrived overhead. Everyone is still wearing a hat beneath it. Many public lamps use an electric arc between carbon rods. The light is brilliant and suits streets, railway yards, and large shops. Up close, it can feel severe. A person who has spent a lifetime beside candles and gaslight may reasonably suspect that this new lamp has brought too much information into the room. Incandescent bulbs offer a gentler light. Current passes through a thin filament sealed inside glass, creating a steady glow without an exposed flame. Edison and other inventors have spent years improving the lamp, generators, wiring, meters, and the rest of the system needed to make it useful beyond a laboratory. The bulb is only the visible part. Nearby, engines turn dynamos, and workers watch machinery so that your ceiling may remain calm. Pearl Street begins with a small district and a limited number of customers. Its direct current system cannot send power very far, so generating stations must stand close to the buildings they serve. Other companies experiment with different arrangements, and the contest is still developing. Electricity has not yet settled into one quiet national system. It is a collection of local plants, private generators, patents, arguments, and wires being placed wherever confidence has arrived first. Large businesses can generate their own power. A hotel may install a plant in the basement. A theatre can advertise electric lamps as part of the attraction, promising brighter scenery and less open flame near painted cloth. Gas jets heat the air and consume oxygen. Kerosene lamps can tip or leak. Candles place fire directly beside curtains, paper, hair, and clothing, arranged with great care but little resistance to sparks. Electric light removes the flame from the room, though early wiring brings new risks. Insulation can fail. Work may be poorly installed. People hear stories of shocks and fires and wonder whether the invisible current is safer merely because it has become harder to see. You look toward the wall control, if the room has one. Early switches may not resemble the familiar flat switch of later homes. A lamp can be turned by a small key, pull chain, or separate fixture. Some systems use sockets and cords whose exposed parts deserve respect. Servants and householders must learn new habits. You do not test the wire with a curious finger, even when an enthusiastic salesman assures you that the system is perfectly harmless. Cost keeps most families with older light. A household already connected to gas may see little reason to pay for rewiring. Rural homes remain far from generating stations. Kerosene is portable, familiar, and available almost anywhere. You trim the wick, fill the reservoir, clean the chimney glass, and accept the smell. The labour is ordinary. Electric light promises to remove that routine, but promises are often more widely distributed than wires. Where electricity does arrive, it changes evening life. Shops stay open later. Factories can extend work after sunset with brighter illumination. Hotels and public buildings display their modernity through glowing windows. Streets lit by arc lamps feel transformed, although the harsh brightness may leave deep darkness between each pool of light. The new system does not simply make night disappear. It rearranges it into brilliant patches and uncertain edges. People gather to watch special illuminations and newly wired buildings. A line of bulbs outlining a facade can draw a crowd because light itself has become entertainment. Someone predicts that every house will soon have it. Another person says the arrangement is unnatural and returns home to a gas fixture that occasionally leaks into the parlour. The social meaning is difficult to miss. Electric light suggests wealth, invention, and access to the future. A dining room lit by bulbs can impress guests before the food arrives. A store filled with clear light makes merchandise glitter and colours remain visible into the evening. The customer can inspect fabric after sunset, which is helpful for shopping and less helpful for any clerk hoping darkness might end the day. Workers may welcome safer visibility while discovering that the brighter room allows the shift to continue. Progress often extends the hours before it shortens them. You remain beneath the lamp as the crowd slowly moves on. There is no flame to flicker and no smoke curling toward the ceiling. The glass bulb simply glows, small and steady. Outside, a lamplighter is still tending gas lamps along another street. Two versions of the evening now exist within a few blocks. You step back into the dusk and glance once more at the bright windows. The future is shining beautifully. It has not yet reached your bedroom. Inside a tall hotel or department store, a uniformed attendant closes the gate and places one hand on the control. The elevator begins to rise. Hotels, stores, and office buildings are adding more usable floors because passengers no longer have to climb every step themselves. Safety devices developed earlier in the century have made vertical travel less alarming, though the operator remains a comforting part of the arrangement. He slows the car, judges the floor level, opens the gate, and announces where you have arrived. A slightly poor stop leaves the landing above or below your shoes, reminding everyone that convenience is being managed by cables and a human wrist. Before elevators, upper rooms are often cheaper because stairs punish height. Now the best views begin moving upward. You step out several stories above the street and avoid asking too many questions about what is holding the car. Progress has lifted you. The attendant has handled the difficult part. Elisha Otis's safety device, demonstrated in the middle of the century, helps by catching the car if the lifting rope fails. By the 1880s, elevators are no longer curiosities in the grandest urban buildings. They are becoming part of hotels, department stores, office blocks, and expensive apartment houses. Whatever method is used, the passenger sees only the decorated car, the operator, and the dark shaft glimpsed for a moment when the gate opens. Designers often make the car look like a small parlour. Wood panels, mirrors, and brass fittings soften the idea that you have entered a moving box. A mirror makes the space seem larger and gives passengers somewhere to direct their eyes while standing unusually close to strangers. Everyone can study a hat, a button, or the floor indicator, while pretending the cables above deserve no thought. The operator's work demands more skill than the calm uniform suggests. He controls speed, watches for signals, and stops close enough to each landing for passengers to step safely. In busy buildings, bells or buzzers call the car from different floors. Doors and gates may not yet have the automatic protections familiar later. The attendant must make sure the entrance is closed before moving. He also needs to prevent eager passengers from stepping toward a car that has not arrived. The empty shaft is not improved by optimism. Children are watched closely. Loose clothing, packages, and long skirts must remain clear of the gate. Your bustle, already difficult in a chair, now enters a compartment that has measured every inch. You turn carefully and allow another passenger to stand beside you. The car starts with a small jolt. Someone grips the rail. The operator remains composed, which is reassuring because his expression has become part of the safety equipment. In a hotel, he may know guests by sight and remember their flaws. He hears fragments of plans, arguments, business, and family news during repeated journeys. His social position is modest, but his knowledge of the building is excellent. A guest can spend a week avoiding another guest, only to meet them inside a car too small for escape. The elevator has created a new kind of social encounter. It lasts less than a minute and provides nowhere natural to look. Before passenger elevators, the lower floors of hotels and apartments are often preferred. They require fewer stairs, receive easier deliveries, and allow a person to leave without planning a climb. Rooms high above the street may be cheaper and occupied by servants or people with less choice. Elevators begin reversing that pattern. Height offers cleaner air, more light, less street noise, and better views. Wealth starts moving upward. Architects can design taller buildings because tenants and customers no longer need the legs of mountain guides. Tall new structures emerged during the decade, helped by metal framing and reliable vertical transport. The elevator does not create the tall city alone, but it makes the upper floors economically useful. Department stores benefit in another way. Customers can reach several levels without becoming too tired to buy anything when they arrive. Each floor develops its own department. Furniture may wait above clothing, while household goods occupy another level. The elevator operator announces them in a practiced voice. The building becomes a stack of separate shopping streets connected by a small room. Guests with heavy trunks still rely on porters and service lifts, but they can travel to their rooms without climbing. Older visitors, fashionable women in restrictive clothes, and anyone who has eaten a large dinner may feel particular gratitude. Breakdowns remain possible. Machinery needs inspection, lubrication, and repair. A stalled elevator can leave passengers between floors with no graceful way to pretend this was intended. The operator rings for help or works the control while everyone listens to the building make unfamiliar sounds. Panic is discouraged, so is asking whether the rope looks strong. Most journeys end normally, which is how the public gradually learns trust. The car rises, stops, and opens. You step onto the landing, checking the small difference in height before committing your weight. The operator closes the gate behind you and continues upward with the other passengers. His bell rings again almost at once. You stand in a corridor several floors above the street, having reached it without a staircase, a pause, or visible effort. The building has made height convenient. It has also employed a man to spend the day moving vertically on everyone else's behalf. At the station, the clock has acquired authority over the sky. Towns once kept their own local time, usually based on when the sun reached noon. This worked reasonably well until railways began linking hundreds of places whose clocks disagreed by small but troublesome amounts. Timetables became dense, connections became risky. On the 18th of November in 1883, the major North American railroads adopt standard railway time and divide the continent into broad zones. In some towns, clocks are adjusted so sharply that noon seems to arrive twice or not quite when expected. The change is not first imposed by federal law. The railroads make it because trains have become too important to manage through separate local noons. You set your watch by the station clock and accept that time now belongs partly to transportation companies. The sun remains where it has always been. The timetable has overruled it. Before the change, a town may set its clocks by observing the sun or by following a local jeweler, observatory, or public clock. Noon in one community can differ by several minutes from noon in another, only a short railway journey away. When travel moves at the speed of a horse, this causes little trouble. A person reaches the next town slowly enough for the difference to remain a curiosity. The railway removes that comfort. Trains cross many local times in a single day, and each company may also use its own standard for scheduling. A busy station can display several clocks, each connected to a different line. The traveller must know not only when the train leaves, but whose version of time the timetable has chosen. You stand beneath the clocks with a ticket, a watch, and the growing suspicion that punctuality has become a branch of mathematics. Railway employees face the greater danger. Dispatchers and station masters need to know where trains are on lines that may share tracks. A misunderstanding of minutes can be more than inconvenient. Telegraph signals help coordinate movement, but the clocks behind those signals must agree. Railroad officials spend years discussing proposals for a simpler system. William F. Allen, secretary of the General Time Convention and editor of a railway guide, helps bring the companies toward a common plan. Observatories agree to send time signals by telegraph so clocks can be set together. The new arrangement creates broad zones, each using one standard time rather than a separate noon for every town. Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific time cover the United States, with another zone serving Eastern Canada. The boundaries are practical rather than natural. No line appears on the ground. A farmer can cross one without seeing anything, except the same field continuing on the other side. Yet the clock changes because railroad officials have decided that the continent will be easier to manage in sections. On the chosen Sunday, station clocks are reset at noon according to the new system. In some places, the hands move backward. Noon arrives under the old local time, then appears again under standard time. Newspapers call attention to the oddity. Churches, businesses, factories, and town governments must decide whether to follow the railroads. Many do so quickly because the railway carries mail, goods, customers, and people who do not wish to miss their connections. Resistance remains. Some citizens object that private companies have no right to alter the time of day. Local pride can attach itself to local noon. A town may keep one clock for solar time and another for railway time, allowing residents to be correct in two different ways and late by either one. The change also reaches ordinary habits. Meal times shift slightly. Factory whistles follow the new clocks. Schools open according to whatever standard the community accepts. A person whose watch was accurate yesterday may now be several minutes wrong without the watch having done anything. You carry it to a jeweler or compare it with the station clock. The hands are adjusted, and the old noon disappears into memory. There is no federal law forcing the nation to accept the zones at first. Congress will not establish standard time in law until the next century. The system succeeds because railroads and businesses use it, and daily life begins arranging itself around them. Practical convenience has achieved what argument alone could not. A shopkeeper may dislike railroad authority but still open when customers expect. A hotel may keep its clocks aligned because guests arrive by train. Telegraph companies, newspapers, and financial markets also benefit from shared time. The country begins speaking about hours in a more uniform way, though boundaries and local practices continue to change. Standard time does not make every clock accurate. Watches still run fast or slow. Station clocks require care. A household clock may lose several minutes during the week and recover them only when someone notices that Sunday dinner has begun suspiciously early. What changes is the belief that there should be one correct answer within the zone. Time becomes something received from a network rather than discovered by looking upward. You wait on the platform as the minute hand approaches departure. The conductor checks his watch. The station master checks another. Somewhere along the line, other men are doing the same under different skies but according to the same agreed hour. The train arrives with smoke, noise, and remarkable punctuality. The sun has not signed the agreement. It is no longer required. The carriage jerks, the locomotive breathes, and the station begins sliding away behind the window. Rail travel has shortened journeys that once required days of coaching over rough roads. It has not made travel clean. Coal smoke enters through gaps and open windows. Fine cinders settle into hair, collars, luggage, and eyes. Wooden cars shake over the track while conversation rises above the clatter. Comfort depends heavily on the route and the ticket. Wealthier passengers may book sleeping berths or eat in dining cars on certain trains. Others remain upright for long hours beside food parcels, children, and strangers whose travelling habits become familiar too quickly. Heating can come from stoves inside the car, a welcome feature that also gives cautious passengers something new to consider during sharp turns. You wipe soot from the window and admire the changing landscape. The railroad has conquered distance. A small portion of the locomotive is now inside your coat. After the first miles, your body learns to move with the car rather than against it. Hats shift slightly with each curve, and dignity begins sharing space with vibration. The passenger car may be heated by a stove at one end, sometimes guarded by a railing but still close enough to luggage, coats, and wooden walls to deserve attention. Railway fires are a real fear. A collision or derailment can overturn the stove and ignite the car. It gives warmth unevenly. Passengers nearby grow hot while those farther away keep their coats buttoned and watch the lucky end of the car with quiet resentment. Ventilation creates the opposite problem. Closed windows trap smoke, breath, lamp fumes, and the smell of food carried from home. Open windows admit fresh air along with soot and sparks. You choose the amount of discomfort that seems best suited to the season. Day coaches offer rows of seats, often upholstered but firm enough to remind you that the railroad has already provided speed and cannot be expected to solve the human back as well. Seats may turn so groups can face one another. This is pleasant when travelling with family and less pleasant when a stranger decides the shared arrangement includes a full account of his business. Children sleep across laps. Babies announce changes in hunger or general opinion. Vendors pass through cars or call at station stops, selling newspapers, fruit, sandwiches, coffee, candy, and books. Food purchased on the platform must be chosen quickly, because the train does not pause while you inspect the pie's character. Longer routes increasingly offer dining cars, where meals are served at tables with linen, china, and the strange luxury of soup moving at railway speed. The service can be elegant, though every spoonful remains under the care of the track. Sleeping cars transform overnight journeys for those who can afford them. Pullman cars provide berths made from seats and upper sections that fold down after dark. Curtains offer a narrow kind of privacy. A porter prepares the bedding, arranges ladders, assists passengers, and remains available through the night. Many Pullman porters are black men working long hours for low pay and depending heavily on tips. You climb into the berth, place clothing where it can be found again, and discover that the train continues moving even when you are trying to sleep. Somewhere nearby, a stranger snores with the confidence of a person who has purchased the same ticket. Washing facilities are limited. A small room may offer a basin and water, but several passengers need it in the morning. Toilets are basic and can discharge directly onto the track. Signs warn passengers not to use them while the train is stopped at a station, a request that protects people outside more than those inside. The polite traveller plans accordingly and hopes the timetable shares the plan. Luggage is divided between what remains with you and what travels in the baggage car. A trunk can be checked and marked with a claim ticket. Smaller valises, baskets, hat boxes, blankets, and parcels gather around the seat. Families carry food for long journeys because station meals cost money, and dining cars are not guaranteed. Hard-boiled eggs, bread, meat, fruit, and cakes survive travel reasonably well. Their smells join the air by noon. Women travelling alone may choose cars, seats, and companions with care. Some trains provide ladies' cars or separate waiting rooms, though protection and restriction often arrive together. Conductors move through checking tickets and answering questions. Brakemen pass between cars while the train is moving, working in weather that passengers experience mainly as scenery. Every comfortable arrival depends on labour spread along the route. Engineers, firemen, track crews, telegraph operators, station agents, and switchmen keep the journey moving. You see only a fraction of them. The landscape changes from farms to towns, forests to industrial yards. Telegraph poles follow the track like a second railway made of wire. At each station, the car fills and empties. News arrives. Parcels shift. The locomotive takes water or fuel when needed, then pulls forward again. By evening, your face feels dry from soot, and the collar has lost its earlier confidence. Yet the distance covered is astonishing. A journey that once demanded endurance over roads now passes beneath a roof with a seat and a timetable. You reach the next station tired, dusty, and several states farther from breakfast. The railroad has delivered you quickly. Cleanliness was never included in the fare. For a black traveller, the ticket in your hand may say first class while the conductor applies a different rule. Racial separation is already being enforced through custom, company policy, violence, and local law, particularly in the South. In 1884, Ida B. Wells is forcibly removed from a first-class railway car after refusing to move to another section. She brings a legal case against the railroad and initially wins damages, though the Tennessee Supreme Court later reverses that victory. Her experience shows how easily the language of progress can coexist with humiliation and exclusion. The railway connects towns, businesses, and people, but those controlling the cars do not offer equal freedom of movement. You may dress properly, pay the full fare, and behave with perfect calm. None of it guarantees that the company will honour its own ticket. The train moves forward. The country has much farther to travel. Wells is a young teacher travelling between Memphis and the community where she works. She has purchased the better ticket and taken a seat in the ladies' car, a space presented as cleaner and more respectable than the smoking car. The conductor orders her to move. She refuses because the fare has already purchased the seat and because the demand is wrong. Railway employees drag her from the car while white passengers watch. She does not allow the incident to end at the platform. She hires a lawyer and sues. A local court awards her damages. The railroad appeals, and the state's highest court overturns the decision, leaving Wells responsible for costs. The defeat does not silence her. Her account matters because it shows that segregation is not only a sign nailed to a wall, it is carried out by people who decide where you may sit, which car you must enter, and whether your purchase will be respected after the money has been accepted. The railway car is a small moving public space, and every rule inside it reveals who is allowed to travel without explanation. During Reconstruction, federal laws and constitutional amendments promise civil rights and equal citizenship. Those promises face fierce resistance. By the 1880s, white political power is being restored across much of the South through intimidation, violence, court decisions, and changes in state law. The Supreme Court civil rights cases of 1883 strike down key parts of the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1875, weakening protection against discrimination in inns, theatres, and public transportation. The decision treats much private discrimination as beyond the reach of that law. Railway companies and local authorities gain more room to enforce unequal treatment, while insisting the arrangement is merely custom or business. Practices vary from place to place. Some trains use separate cars. Others assign black passengers to smoking cars or less comfortable sections. A black woman may be ordered away from a lady's car even though the alternative contains smoke, drinking, and male passengers. The language of protection is applied selectively. White womanhood is treated as something the railway must guard. Black women are denied the same respect while still being judged by strict ideas of dress and conduct. You can arrive in a neat coat, carry a proper bag, and speak with care. The conductor may still regard your presence as the problem. Black travellers develop ways to manage the danger. Families share information about routes, stations, and railway staff. Community newspapers report mistreatment. Porters and railway workers can offer practical help, though they also live within the same system of racial hierarchy. A journey may require more than a ticket. It requires knowledge of where a person will be allowed to wait, eat, sit, and sleep. In some stations, waiting rooms are separated. Refreshment counters may refuse service. Hotels near the route may not accept black guests. A missed connection can therefore create a serious problem rather than a mere inconvenience. The railway sells national mobility while leaving many travellers to plan around exclusion at every stop. The unfairness is not limited to the South, though it is becoming more openly organised there. Discrimination appears in northern and western cities as well, shaped by local practice and prejudice. Black Americans face exclusion from hotels, restaurants, theatres, and other public places across the country. The form changes. The message remains familiar. Your money may be accepted more readily than your presence. Resistance also takes many forms. Some challenges occur in court, others appear in newspapers, churches, political meetings, and direct refusal. Wells turns her train case into written testimony. She describes the event rather than allowing the railroad to describe it for her. That act of recording is powerful because humiliation often depends on silence. A company can call removal routine. A passenger can name it injustice. Wells will later use the same courage in campaigns against lynching, risking her safety to expose violence that powerful institutions prefer not to confront. On this journey, however, she is still a young woman defending the seat she paid for. You sit with the ticket folded in your glove or pocket and hear the conductor coming down the aisle. For a white passenger, the sound may mean an ordinary inspection. For you, it may mean another test of whether the printed fare has any authority. The car sways. Smoke moves past the window. Other travellers avoid your eyes or watch openly. The railroad timetable is precise about departure, distance, and arrival. It has left justice off the schedule. Long before the machinery comes into view, the whistle claims the morning. It calls workers through gates and into rooms where belts move overhead, and metal parts repeat the same motion without fatigue. You hang your coat, find your place, and begin working beside noise too constant for ordinary conversation. A shift may last 10 hours or longer, often 6 days a week. Conditions depend on the trade. Cotton dust fills textile mills. Heat gathers near furnaces. Fumes settle in workshops. Machinery may remain unguarded because safety laws are limited and production rarely pauses to consider a sleeve. Industrial growth makes goods cheaper and fortunes larger. It also places thousands of workers inside schedules controlled almost entirely by employers. Labour organisations are growing, and arguments over hours, wages, and the right to organise are becoming harder to ignore. For now, the belt continues moving. The whistle has announced opportunity. It has also decided when you may stop. The sound reaches into streets and boarding houses, gathering separate lives into one schedule. You may have walked before dawn, eaten quickly, or left children with a relative. Once inside, the company clock matters more than the one at home. Arriving late can reduce wages or cost the job. Leaving early requires permission. The workday is divided by bells, meal breaks, and the pace of machinery rather than by sunlight or personal need. In a textile mill, long rooms hold rows of spinning frames or looms. Belts run from shafts overhead, carrying power from a central engine or water system to each machine. The motion is constant. Oil darkens the floorboards. Loose fibres hang in the air and settle on hair and clothing. You learn to read lips, gestures, and familiar movements because spoken words vanish beneath the sound. A loom that changes its rhythm demands attention at once. A broken thread must be repaired before the fault spreads. Several machines may be assigned to one worker, turning the day into a repeated walk between small emergencies. Other industries bring different surroundings. A metal shop fills the air with hammering, sparks, and the smell of hot oil. A foundry places men near furnaces where heat reaches through heavy clothing. Garment shops crowd workers around tables and sewing machines, sometimes inside tenement rooms rather than separate factories. Cigar makers roll tobacco by hand. Packing houses, glassworks, shoe factories, and food processors each create their own mix of skill, speed, dust, and danger. The wage can provide independence, help support a family, or offer an alternative to farm work and domestic service. Women enter mills, garment shops, laundries, and factories in large numbers. Their pay is often lower than men's, even when the work requires equal speed and endurance. Employers may describe women's wages as extra household money, a useful phrase when the household knows the rent is not extra. Rules inside the workplace can be strict. Supervisors watch output, inspect quality, and decide whether a worker's pace is acceptable. Some employers fine workers for damaged goods, lateness, or broken rules. Payment may come by the day, week, or amount produced. Piecework rewards speed while making slow machinery, poor materials, and fatigue the worker's private financial problem. You count completed pieces because each one has become a small part of supper. Accidents are common enough to shape behavior. Exposed belts can catch hair or clothing. Gears draw in fingers. Flying fragments injure eyes. Floors become slippery with oil or waste. Fire is a constant danger where wood, cloth, paper, dust, and open flames share crowded space. Factory inspection exists in some states, and reformers press for safer conditions, but laws vary and enforcement remains limited. An injured worker may receive little support beyond whatever family, union, or neighbours can provide. The machine is repaired quickly. The person must arrange the rest. Fatigue increases every risk. After hours of noise and repeated motion, attention becomes harder to hold. Lunch offers a pause, though it may be brief. You eat from a tin pail or wrapped parcel near the workplace. Bread, meat, cheese, fruit, or yesterday's pie must survive until the bell. You sit where space allows and rest hands already preparing to return. Labour organisations offer another kind of gathering. The Knights of Labour expand greatly during the decade and welcome many kinds of workers, including women and black workers, though prejudice and exclusion still affect local practice. Trade unions organise within specific crafts. Workers discuss wages, shorter hours, and control over conditions. The 8-hour movement grows, arguing that the day should leave room for rest and ordinary life. Strikes can win improvements, but they also bring lost pay, dismissal, police action, or replacement workers. Employers may use blacklists to prevent organisers from finding new jobs. The labour conflict surrounding the Haymarket Affair in Chicago in 1886 makes the struggle for shorter hours nationally visible and far more dangerous. The day continues until the final whistle. When it sounds, the belts slow and the great room begins losing its voice. You collect your coat and step outside with lint on your sleeves or oil beneath your nails. The evening air feels wide after the factory. Tomorrow, the whistle will call again at the same hour. The machine has rested only because the company has allowed you to leave. Near the adult workers stands a child whose hands are small enough for work the factory finds useful. In the 1880s, children earn wages in mills, mines, workshops, shops, fields, and city streets. A boy may sell newspapers before sunrise. A girl may tend machinery or finish garments at home. Another child sorts coal, carries messages, or works beside relatives because the household needs every available income. Laws differ by state, and enforcement remains weak. School attendance is expanding, but it has not yet created a clear national boundary between learning and labour. Parents do not necessarily consider dangerous work desirable. Rent, food, and winter fuel may simply leave them little room to choose. You move quickly because the overseer is watching, and because slowing down can reduce the family's earnings. The nation speaks proudly about its future. Part of that future is already tired before supper. A child in a textile mill may replace empty bobbins, tie broken threads, carry materials, or clear waste beneath machinery. Repeated for hours beside moving belts and gears, these small tasks become something else. Small size is useful to the employer because narrow spaces are easier to reach and young workers can be paid less. The same size makes the machinery more dangerous. Clothing can catch, dust enters smaller lungs. A tired child may misjudge the distance between a hand and a wheel that has performed the same movement all day without becoming tired itself. In coal regions, boys may work at breakers, sitting over chutes and removing pieces of slate from coal as it passes beneath them. The air is black with dust. Fingers become cracked and cut. Noise fills the building. In mines, older boys may open ventilation doors, tend animals, or carry messages underground. On city streets, newspaper sellers call headlines through rain, cold, and evening crowds. Bootblacks wait for customers. Messengers hurry between offices with notes and telegrams, learning the streets while adults assume a child can move through traffic more cheaply. They also face long hours, bad weather, rough treatment, and the constant need to sell enough before going home. Paid work can take place inside the family home. A mother and children may sew garments, roll cigars, make artificial flowers, finish boxes, or assemble small goods for a contractor. Pieces arrive in bundles and payment depends on how many are completed. Everyone helps because each pair of hands increases the total. Homework appears safer than a factory because the family remains together. It also carries dust, fumes, sharp tools, and exhausting hours directly into the kitchen. Farm children have always helped with planting, animals, harvests, and household chores. This work can teach skill, but it can also be heavy and dangerous. The line between a reasonable chore and labor that consumes childhood is not fixed by one national rule. Age, hours, schooling, and family need change the meaning. A child gathering eggs after lessons is not living the same day as a child beginning a factory shift before dawn. Families depend on children's wages for reasons larger than any one parent. Adult pay can be low and employment uncertain. Illness, death, injury, or desertion may remove an earner. Immigrant families arrive with debts or little savings. Widows face limited opportunities and lower wages. A few dollars earned by a son or daughter may cover food, rent, or coal. Refusing the work may protect the child while placing the household in immediate danger. Employers can defend child labor by pointing to need, then continue paying adults too little to remove that need. Schooling is becoming more common, and compulsory education laws are spreading, but rules differ widely. Rural distance, factory schedules, harvest work, and weak enforcement leave many children outside the classroom for part or all of the year. Some attend night school after work. Others move between employment and lessons as family circumstances change. Reformers, labor groups, teachers, and some officials criticize the worst conditions. States pass age and hour limits. Though employers and families may evade them, ages are misreported. Records are incomplete. Inspectors are few. A small worker can be described as older when production requires it and younger when wages are discussed. For now, protection depends heavily on location, occupation, and whether anyone with authority chooses to look closely. Childhood itself is being reimagined during the 19th century. Middle-class writing increasingly presents it as a protected period for schooling, play, and moral development. Toys, children's books, and organized education reflect that ideal. Yet the ideal belongs unevenly to the population. The child of a prosperous household may be warned that work builds character while being protected from paid labor. The child of a poor household builds character on an actual shift. You finish the task in front of you and glance toward the window. Other children may be walking to school or playing in the street. The difference is not explained by effort or virtue. It is explained by money, opportunity, and the kind of family into which the morning happened to place you. At last, the workday releases you. Your wages are carried home and placed with the household money. They matter. That is the hardest part. The family needs what the factory should never have asked a child to earn. Beyond the factory district, a one-room schoolhouse gathers several ages beneath the same roof. You place a slate on the desk and wait while another class recites near the front. One teacher must move between reading, arithmetic, spelling, geography, and the quiet prevention of disorder. Lessons depend heavily on memorization. When your group is called, You stand and give the answer aloud. Everyone hears success. Everyone also hears hesitation. The room is heated by a central stove, which warms nearby pupils first and leaves the far wall to develop character. Water may come from a shared bucket and dipper. Attendance changes with harvests, weather, illness, and the work needed at home. The school offers literacy and a wider view of the world, but it does so through discipline, repetition, and a wooden bench with no interest in the shape of the human back. Education is opening doors. The seat is making sure you remain upright while waiting. Before the first lesson, the room must be made usable. An older pupil carries in wood or coal. Another fills the water bucket. The teacher sweeps near the stove and checks the windows, which provide light while admitting a narrow line of cold around the frames. Coats hang from pegs, releasing the smell of damp wool as snow melts from boots. The teacher rings a hand bell, and several conversations become silence. Younger children sit toward the front. Older pupils take the longer desks behind them. While you copy a word on your slate, a group near the teacher reads aloud. Their voices rise and fall together. Another class works through sums. One child studies a map while a smaller one studies the child. A single teacher must keep all of this moving without allowing the room to become a market or meeting. Recitation helps. When your group is called, you carry the book forward and stand near the bench. A reader such as one of the McGuffey series may provide the passage. You sound out the words, then explain the lesson hidden inside them. Stories often reward industry, honesty, obedience, and self-control. Reading is not merely expected to teach you how to understand a page. It is also expected to improve your character. A difficult word can therefore feel like a moral failure. Spelling is equally public. The teacher gives a word, and you speak each letter clearly. In a spelling match, pupils remain standing until a mistake returns them to the bench. Success brings pride. Failure brings the useful knowledge that half the district now knows exactly where you placed the missing vowel. Arithmetic begins on the slate because paper is too valuable for every calculation. You work through addition, fractions, or problems involving money and measure. A damp cloth erases the answer. A sleeve often performs the same service with less dignity. Copybooks are treated more carefully. You dip a steel pen into ink and form each line slowly, trying not to leave a blot where neatness was meant to prove discipline. Your fingers stiffen. Penmanship has discovered muscles the farm chores overlooked. Geography opens a much larger world. A wall map, if the school owns one, shows rivers, states, mountain ranges, and coastlines far beyond the road outside. You memorize capitals you may never visit and trace routes that the railways are making easier to imagine. A globe turns beneath the teacher's hand. The room remains small, but the lesson travels. Teachers are often young, and many are women. Training varies. Some have attended normal schools, others have passed a local examination and accepted work that offers respectability but modest pay. A rural teacher may board with families in the district. This saves money and gives every parent a private opportunity to ask whether their child is attentive. The teacher learns to answer carefully because supper is still being served. Discipline can be strict. A pupil may stand in a corner, remain after class, copy lines, or face physical punishment. One adult is managing several age groups, and authority becomes a tool beside the chalk and stove poker. Yet the teacher also ties scarves, tends scraped hands, settles fears, and notices when a child arrives without lunch. Schooling is formal, but the room is still a community. Attendance changes with the needs waiting outside. Farm children miss days during planting and harvest. Bad roads, illness, storms, and household work keep others home. Some children attend only part of the year. Compulsory education laws are spreading, but enforcement differs, especially in rural districts. In growing towns, graded schools separate pupils by age and place each class in its own room. Here, everyone remains together, listening to lessons they have not reached or have already survived. At noon, you open a tin pail or cloth parcel. Bread, an apple, or a piece of pie has carried the smell of home into the schoolroom. Water passes through the shared dipper, which offers community and several illnesses with equal generosity. Then the bell calls everyone back. By late afternoon, the stove has settled and the light has weakened. You wipe the slate, close the reader, and pull on your coat. Tomorrow's lesson is assigned as though chores, supper, and the walk home are minor interruptions. Outside, the cold air feels broad and clean. You have learned spelling, arithmetic, And one lasting fact about education: a wooden bench can make 10 minutes longer than a railway journey. In another part of the country, school begins with separation rather than opportunity. Native American children are taken to government and church-run boarding schools, sometimes far from their families. The Carlisle Indian Industrial School opens in Pennsylvania in 1879 and becomes a model for other off-reservation institutions. On arrival, children may have their hair cut, receive English names, and be placed in uniforms. Their languages and spiritual traditions are punished or suppressed. Military schedules, Christian instruction, manual labor, and vocational training are used to replace native identity with the values demanded by white officials. Children resist in many ways. They remember words, protect friendships, run away, write home, and hold on to parts of themselves the institution is trying to remove. The system calls this education and civilization. Families experience it as absence, grief, and forced change. The decade's idea of progress can be gentle in its language and brutal in its purpose. Your first days are arranged to make home feel distant. Clothing brought from your family may be taken away. Boys are placed in military-style uniforms while girls receive dresses chosen by the school. Long hair can carry deep cultural and spiritual meaning, yet staff may cut it without consent. The change is photographed and shown to officials or donors as proof that the institution is succeeding. A child's forced transformation becomes an advertisement. The camera records the uniform. It does not record what has been taken. Names change as well. A familiar name tied to family, language, and community may be replaced with an English one selected by staff. It appears in attendance books, reports, letters, and commands. You are expected to answer quickly even while the sound still belongs to someone you have never met. The day follows bells. You line up, march, attend lessons, work, eat, and sleep according to a fixed schedule. English is required. Speaking your own language can bring punishment, so an ordinary conversation with a friend becomes an act of care and risk. Lessons teach reading, writing, arithmetic, and American history through materials shaped by white ideas of citizenship. The aim is not simply to add new knowledge. It is to push aside the knowledge carried from home. Religious instruction places further pressure on native spiritual life. Christian worship is treated as a necessary replacement rather than one belief among many. Manual labor fills much of the timetable. Boys may be trained in farming, carpentry, printing, blacksmithing, or other trades. Girls may be taught sewing, cooking, laundry, and domestic service. Officials describe the work as preparation for adult life. It also keeps the school operating. Pupils cook meals, mend uniforms, maintain buildings, and care for the grounds. The institution receives labor while presenting the arrangement as instruction. You learn that a duty can change its name without becoming lighter. Carlisle also develops an outing system that places students with white families for work and cultural immersion. A boy may labor on a farm. A girl may enter domestic service. Supporters claim that daily life in a white household will speed assimilation. For the student, it often means another separation and closer supervision. Some hosts treat children with kindness. Others exploit their labor or neglect them. The system is built on the belief that distance from native family and community is itself a benefit. Letters offer one narrow path home. You may write to parents or relatives, though school rules and staff oversight affect what can be said. Mail travels slowly to distant reservations. Some families have limited English literacy, while children may be forbidden or discouraged from writing in their own language. A simple page must cross geography, translation, and institutional control before it reaches the right hands. The reply, when it comes, may carry news already several weeks old. Homesickness has no place in the official schedule, but it enters the dormitory after the lamps are lowered. A child may lie awake remembering a family voice, a familiar landscape, or the language forbidden during the day. Illness brings greater danger. Crowded rooms, poor nutrition, hard work, and limited medical care allow infection to spread. Tuberculosis, measles, influenza, and other diseases move through dormitories. Some children die at school and are buried far from their families. Parents may learn through a letter written by the same institution that kept the child away. The exact conditions differ among schools and years, but the policy behind them is clear. Federal authorities and religious organizations seek to break cultural ties by removing children from the places where language, belief, kinship, and community knowledge are learned. Children are not passive inside this system. They whisper familiar words, share stories, hide meaningful objects, refuse instructions, protect younger pupils, and form friendships that help them endure. Some run away despite long distances and unfamiliar roads. Others use the English literacy forced upon them to write criticism, defend native rights, and record what happened. Survival does not make the system kind. It shows that the children carried more than the school could successfully remove. By evening, the dormitory settles under rules that reach into sleep. Uniforms hang nearby. The bell will sound again in the morning. Somewhere far away, a family is missing a voice that belongs inside the house. The school has changed the child's clothes and name. Home has not forgotten either one. At the drugstore, shelves are crowded with tonics, bitters, syrups, powders, and pills. Each label promises relief with the calm certainty of a product that has not been required to prove very much. Federal regulation remains limited, and manufacturers can keep formulas secret. Alcohol or opium may appear in remedies sold for pain, nerves, sleeplessness, coughs, or children's discomfort. Some medicines provide real relief. Others do little beyond warming the patient and improving the seller's income. A few create dependence while continuing to advertise themselves as the cure. Testimonials replace careful testing, and the same bottle may claim to strengthen the weak, settle the stomach, calm the mind, and restore the general will to face relatives. You hold it toward the window, but the glass reveals no useful information. The label promises health in excellent lettering. The ingredients have chosen not to attend the consultation. Behind the counter, the druggist works in a room where science, habit, and salesmanship occupy neighboring shelves. He may prepare a physician's prescription by weighing powders, mixing liquids, rolling pills, or filling capsules. Mortars, scales, jars, and folded papers cover the work area. His training matters because many useful drugs become dangerous when the dose wanders. Yet beside these careful preparations stand proprietary remedies already bottled by manufacturers and advertised across the country. They are often called patent medicines, although many are not actually patented. A true patent would reveal the formula, and secrecy is more valuable when the recipe consists largely of alcohol, flavoring, and confidence. The bottle arrives with a memorable name and a label crowded with promises. A tonic can claim to improve digestion, restore strength, calm the nerves, and correct a general decline that sounds broad enough to include most Tuesdays. Newspaper advertisements support the case with testimonials. A minister, respectable widow, or local businessman describes years of suffering followed by a remarkable recovery. The story has a clear beginning, a useful bottle in the middle, and no awkward discussion of what happened after the third purchase. Alcohol appears in many bitters and tonics because it preserves ingredients and creates a warm sensation that feels like treatment beginning. A person who would hesitate to buy liquor can purchase a medicinal bottle with less social concern. The contents may still alter the afternoon. Opium preparations are common and genuinely effective for pain, coughing, and diarrhea. Laudanum, a liquid mixture containing opium, is widely available. It can quiet severe discomfort and help a person sleep. It can also slow breathing, cause dependence, and become dangerous when taken without careful dosing. Remedies sold for children's teething or restlessness may contain morphine or other opiates. A tired parent sees a promise of sleep and measures a spoonful without receiving the warning a modern label would provide. The child becomes quiet because the medicine has acted on far more than the gums. Coca preparations also enter popular medicine. Cocaine becomes valuable as a local anesthetic during the 1880s, especially after its use in eye surgery is demonstrated. Physicians and dentists quickly recognize its ability to numb tissue. Manufacturers also place coca or cocaine into tonics and other products before the risks are understood. Cannabis preparations can be purchased for pain, sleep, and other complaints. None of these substances is automatically fraudulent. Several have real medical effects. The danger lies in uncertain strength, broad claims, easy access, and the cheerful absence of complete information. You may take one remedy for a cough and another for sleep, without knowing that both depress the body in similar ways. Women are frequent targets of the advertising. Products promise to treat weakness, faintness, irregularity, nervousness, and nearly anything placed under the phrase female complaint. The wording can cover menstruation, pregnancy, pain, anemia, anxiety, exhaustion, or a life that has become genuinely difficult. A bottle offers privacy when a medical consultation is costly or embarrassing. It can also feel kinder than a doctor who listens briefly and explains that the problem is feminine nerves. The remedy may not solve the condition, but the label at least behaves as though it believes you. Traveling medicine shows carry the same confidence into town squares and rural communities. Music, jokes, speeches, and demonstrations gather a crowd before the product appears. The seller tells stories of cures and invites someone to test the preparation. Entertainment gives the bottle a friendly glow. By the time money changes hands, the audience has already received part of the evening's value. Some companies disappear quickly. Others build national brands through relentless advertising and wide distribution. Reformers, physicians, pharmacists, and journalists increasingly object to false claims and hidden narcotics. States begin passing rules, but strong federal regulation will not arrive until the next century. During the 1880s, the bottle still enjoys remarkable freedom to describe itself. You ask the druggist how much to take. He studies the label and gives an answer that may be sensible. At home, you measure a spoonful beneath the lamplight. The liquid tastes bitter, sweet, and strongly medicinal. Warmth spreads through the chest. The cough may ease. Sleep may come. Tomorrow, the same label will still be prepared to cure several conditions you had not realized were available. The medicine has kept its recipe private. Your body has been asked to conduct the investigation without further instructions. A toothache narrows the world until no other subject deserves attention. You sit upright in the dentist's chair while he prepares a drill powered by a foot treadle. Each movement of his leg turns the instrument. Dentistry is becoming a recognized profession, with specialized schools, improved tools, and growing knowledge of anesthesia. Comfort remains uneven. Nitrous oxide may be available. Cocaine begins to be used as a local anesthetic during the decade. Access depends on cost, place, and the practitioner's skill. Extraction is still common when a tooth cannot be saved or treatment is too expensive. The room smells of chemicals and polished metal. Light from the window falls directly across the instruments. The dentist explains that the procedure should be manageable. You grip the chair and notice that he has chosen the only word in the room that does not require him to open his mouth. A padded headrest holds you in place while the dentist leans closer with a small mirror and probe. The office may look reassuringly professional, with certificates on the wall and instruments arranged in cases. This is an improvement over the travelling tooth drawer, or barber, who once treated dental pain as another service between a shave and a haircut. Training is becoming more formal. Dental colleges and professional associations promote standards, although skill still varies from one practitioner to another. In a small town, a dentist may visit only on certain days or combine the work with another occupation. You naturally prefer a person whose entire career has been devoted to teeth. This preference weakens slightly when he uncovers the tray. The dental engine stands nearby. James Beale Morrison patented a practical foot-powered model in the early 1870s, and similar machines spread through professional offices. A treadle near the floor sends motion through rods, cords, and pulleys to the handpiece. The dentist works one foot steadily while guiding the burr with both hands. The device turns faster and more smoothly than older hand drills. It saves time and gives greater control. It also produces a sound that settles directly behind the eyes. There is no electric motor hidden in the wall. Every rotation is being supplied by the dentist's leg, which appears to have trained for the occasion. If the decay is limited, the damaged area can be removed and filled. Gold foil is packed carefully into some cavities. Amalgam, made by combining mercury with other metals, is also widely used despite years of argument within the profession. It is cheaper and easier to place than gold, making treatment available to more patients. The dentist clears the softened tooth, rinses the area, and continues drilling until the cavity is ready. You remain still because the tool is small, the tooth is smaller, and neither benefits from sudden philosophy. Anesthesia has changed what dentists can attempt. Nitrous oxide has been used for extraction since the middle of the century, though its early introduction was uneven. Ether and chloroform may also be used in some cases, but both require caution. In 1884, cocaine is demonstrated as a local anesthetic in eye surgery, and dentists quickly recognize its value for numbing tissue. A solution placed near the tooth can reduce pain without making you fully unconscious. This is a major advance. Although the risks of cocaine are not yet fully understood, medicine has discovered a useful tool and is still reading the instructions. For an ordinary filling, you may receive little anesthetic at all. The dentist tells you to raise one hand if the pain becomes severe. This is wise because speaking is no longer available. Clove oil or another preparation may soothe the tooth temporarily. When decay has reached too far, extraction remains the practical answer. Forceps are shaped for different teeth and positions. The dentist grips, loosens, and removes the tooth with a speed you might admire if the object belonged to a distant cousin. Afterwards, cloth or cotton helps control the bleeding. You are told to rest, eat carefully, and avoid disturbing the socket. Money influences every decision. Saving a tooth may require several visits and costly materials. Pulling it is faster and cheaper. Many people delay treatment until pain makes the choice for them. Missing teeth can be replaced by dentures. Vulcanized rubber has made denture bases more affordable than earlier plates made from ivory or precious metal. Porcelain teeth are fitted into the base and shaped for the mouth. A good plate restores appearance and chewing. A poor one rubs the gums, shifts during speech, and develops a private wish to leave during dinner. Prevention is gaining attention too. Dentists clean tartar, treat gums, and recommend brushes or tooth powders. Toothbrushes exist, but regular daily use is far from universal. Powders may contain chalk, charcoal, soap, or flavoring. Some clean well, others are abrasive enough to improve the surface while quietly reducing the amount of enamel available for future cleaning. When the drill finally stops, the silence seems larger than the office. The dentist dries the cavity and places the filling. You slowly release the chair arms. Outside, wagons pass and the ordinary afternoon continues, unaware that one molar has occupied 2 adults and a foot-powered machine. At last, you close your teeth gently. The bite feels strange but possible. The tooth remains, the dentist has saved it, and his right leg has completed most of the journey. The doctor looks toward the window, the drain, and the water jug. Disease has become more complicated because new ideas about invisible microbes are gaining ground, while older fears of bad air remain firmly in place. Laboratory work is helping doctors understand that specific germs can cause specific illnesses. This knowledge does not arrive everywhere at once. Many households still blame miasma, sewer gas, damp walls, and foul smells. The connection is not entirely foolish, since bad smells often accompany dirty water, waste, and poor ventilation. The explanation is simply incomplete. You air the bedding, boil water, inspect the privy, and use a disinfectant whose own fumes seem capable of removing both illness and wallpaper. Public health reformers push for cleaner streets, safer water, and better drainage. Science is improving the household's understanding of disease. It has also provided several new things to worry about before breakfast. For much of the century, miasma offers a simple explanation for epidemics. Disease seems to rise from decay, sewage, damp ground, and crowded rooms. The idea fits what the senses report. Illness is often worst where gutters overflow, rubbish gathers, and water smells wrong. Cleaning streets, improving drainage, and opening windows can genuinely help, even when the theory behind those actions is mistaken. A wrong explanation has occasionally arrived carrying a useful broom. Germ theory asks you to accept a danger that may have no smell at all. Clear water can carry disease. Clean hands can become contaminated. A person who looks healthy may still spread infection. Louis Pasteur's experiments show that microorganisms do not simply appear from nothing. Robert Koch connects particular microbes with particular diseases, identifying the bacterium responsible for tuberculosis in 1882. Joseph Lister applies antiseptic methods to surgery, using carbolic acid to reduce infection. These discoveries move through journals, hospitals, medical schools, newspapers, and public lectures. They do not enter every home at the same speed. A physician trained under older ideas may remain doubtful. Another accepts bacteria but continues speaking about foul air because both explanations still feel useful in a dirty city. New science does not sweep old belief from the room. It sits beside it and begins moving the chairs. In your household, advice arrives as a series of tasks. Boil drinking water during an outbreak. Keep waste away from the well. Wash soiled bedding separately. Air the sick room. Do not share cups. Clean the privy and cover food from flies. Some instructions grow directly from germ theory. Others belong to older sanitation campaigns. Together, they improve the odds, though they also create more work for the person already tending the patient. Boiling water requires fuel and time. Bedding must be carried, soaked, heated, and dried. Carbolic acid, chloride of lime, and other disinfectants are used with strong confidence and stronger smells. By the time the room has been treated, the patient may seem like the least powerful presence inside it. Ventilation remains important. Windows are opened even in cold weather because fresh air is believed to carry away danger. For tuberculosis, often called consumption, rest and outdoor air are widely recommended. The disease spreads through bacteria, but crowded rooms and poor ventilation do increase the risk. The older concern with air therefore continues to produce some sensible habits, even when it cannot cure an established infection. Bedding is hung outdoors. Sunlight is welcomed into rooms. People are increasingly warned not to spit on floors as health officials connect saliva with disease. Water brings its own unease. Cities are building larger supplies and sewers, but rapid growth often overwhelms them. Wells may stand too close to privies. Waste enters rivers upstream from drinking intakes. A clear glass no longer proves safety, which feels personally unfair after generations spent distrusting anything cloudy. Filters are used in some homes. Boiling offers a reliable defense against many microbes, though nobody enjoys waiting for safe water to cool while already thirsty. Milk can also carry infection when animals are ill or handling is poor. Pasteurization is not yet a normal guarantee. Families may boil milk, especially for children, but practice varies. Public health departments are expanding in large cities. Inspectors examine markets, drains, slaughterhouses, water supplies, and tenements. Their work can save lives, but it can also carry class and ethnic prejudice. Poor and immigrant families may be blamed for conditions created by low wages, overcrowded buildings, and weak city services. A mother can be told to improve ventilation in a room that has been given no proper window. Advice travels more easily than plumbing. Hospitals begin changing as well. Surgeons in institutions that accept antiseptic practice clean instruments and hands more carefully. Fresh gowns, sterilized materials, and controlled operating spaces become more common over time. The transition is uneven. Some doctors resist because invisible organisms seem less convincing than years of personal habit. Science must persuade the people delivering care as well as the people receiving it. You stand beside the water jug while the doctor recommends boiling the supply and keeping the bedroom window slightly open. You follow both instructions, then close the door against the chemical smell rising from the drain. The house may be safer than it was yesterday, though no one can say which precaution deserves the credit. Germ theory has entered the household. It has not yet learned to knock before inspecting everything. Evening settles over a city building where one family's wall is another family's entire sense of privacy. Several people may sleep, cook, work, and eat inside a small number of rooms. Interior spaces receive little daylight. Air moves poorly when buildings cover most of the lot. Water may come from a shared source in the yard or hallway, while privies serve more households than any privy should be expected to know. Paid work can continue inside the home. Garment sewing, cigar making, and other piecework fill the same room used for meals and sleep. Immigrant families build communities, shops, churches, newspapers, and mutual aid networks within these streets. Crowding does not erase skill, humour, or affection. It simply forces each of them to live close to the stove. You hear footsteps overhead and conversation through the wall. The building contains many lives. Silence is rented elsewhere. You enter through a narrow hall that has already lost most of the daylight from the street. Stairs rise steeply between walls marked by hands, coal dust, and years of furniture being carried at difficult angles. Every floor announces itself through sound before you see a face. A baby cries behind one door. A sewing machine works behind another. Someone calls down the stairwell in a language that carries more warmth than the hallway. In cities such as New York, tenements have been built and altered for decades to hold workers arriving faster than decent housing can be supplied. Narrow lots encourage buildings to stretch deep into the block. The Tenement House Act of 1879 requires windows in sleeping rooms of new buildings, encouraging the familiar dumbbell plan with slim air shafts between structures. The shafts admit some light and air. They also collect rubbish, kitchen smells, arguments, and whatever a neighbour decides should leave the window quickly. A window-facing one can provide ventilation and a close relationship with several dinners. Your rooms may include a front area with a street window, a kitchen, and smaller bedrooms borrowing light through doors or interior openings. Beds appear wherever they fit. During the day, bedding is folded or covered so the same space can become a workshop. A table serves meals, sewing, homework, and household accounts. Chairs move constantly because the room has more duties than square feet. Water shapes the day. Some buildings have a tap in the yard or hallway. Others rely on a pump. You carry pails upstairs and try not to spill what already required a queue. Hot water must be heated on the stove. Washing, cooking, laundry, and cleaning all draw from the same supply. Privies stand behind the building and serve more people than they can remain clean for. Chamber pots reduce the night journey but create another task in the morning. Plumbing improvements arrive slowly and unevenly. A law may require something on paper while the landlord continues following a different document called the budget. The kitchen stove provides heat as well as a place to cook. Coal must be bought and carried. On cold nights, the family gathers close because outer rooms remain damp and chilly. In summer, the stove turns supper into a test of loyalty, yet food still needs cooking and irons still need heating. Vendors call from the street below. Children play in the courtyard or on the pavement. Music escapes an open window. The building never has one sound for long. Piecework brings the factory into the home. A contractor delivers bundles of cloth, tobacco, paper flowers, boxes, or other materials and pays by the finished piece. You stitch after supper, while a child trims thread nearby. Another person presses seams close to the stove. The arrangement allows a parent to remain at home, but it also lengthens the workday and fills the living space with lint, glue, dust, or tobacco. A garment later displayed in a bright shop may have spent part of its making beside a tenement bed. The customer sees a neat seam. Your household sees how many are needed before rent day. Illness spreads more easily where rooms are crowded and air moves poorly. Tuberculosis and diarrheal disease take a heavy toll. Infants suffer during hot summers when milk spoils quickly and clean water is uncertain. Reformers describe and photograph these conditions, sometimes with genuine concern and sometimes with language that treats residents as the cause rather than the people trapped inside the result. An inspector may advise a family to clean a room supplied with too little water and no proper drain. The advice is sensible. The building has declined to participate, yet the tenement is not only hardship. A neighbour watches a child while you work. Someone shares soup when wages are late. Families form burial societies, savings clubs, unions, and religious congregations. Shops sell familiar foods. Newspapers carry news from home and local politics. Children invent games in spaces no planner intended for play. Community grows because people need one another, and because privacy offers very few places to hide. Night deepens, but the building does not become still. A worker returns from a late shift. Someone coughs in the next room. The sewing machine stops, leaving your ears to notice every smaller sound. You spread bedding across the floor and lower the lamp. Beyond the wall, another family is doing the same. Air is scarce, rent is regular, and silence has remained beyond the household budget. Still, someone above begins to laugh. The sound passes through the ceiling without asking permission. When someone dies, the household does not immediately hand grief to a distant funeral building. The body may remain at home while relatives, neighbours, and friends arrive to pay respects. The parlour changes purpose. Chairs are moved, curtains are drawn, mirrors may be covered, and clocks may be stopped by family custom. Food appears because visitors still need feeding, even when appetite has left the immediate household. Undertaking is becoming a profession, and embalming has become more familiar since the Civil War, though practice differs by region, faith, and income. Mourning clothing follows detailed expectations, especially for widows expected to wear black through recognized stages. Hair from the dead may be preserved in jewelry or framed as a keepsake. These customs keep death close, visible, and communal. The room that once received polite callers now receives them for a final reason. Even grief must prepare the parlour. Death most often occurs at home because hospitals are not yet the usual place for the end of life. Family members, neighbours, or a hired nurse may have spent days beside the bed. When breathing stops, the same room remains around the body. Someone closes the eyes, straightens the limbs, and begins the work of washing and dressing the person. Grief must share space with basins, cloth, pins, and decisions made while everyone is tired. The practical work can feel rude, yet it gives the hands something to do while the mind catches up. The undertaker may have begun as a cabinet maker or coffin dealer, since making the coffin naturally leads to arranging what goes inside it. By the 1880s, undertaking is becoming a recognized business with services. The undertaker can provide the coffin, transport, notices, mourning goods, and guidance through customs the family may know only in pieces. Embalming, used widely for soldiers during the Civil War so bodies could be sent home, has made preservation more familiar. It is not performed in every case. Distance, weather, expense, religion, and family wishes all matter. Ice may be used when the body remains at home. The reason is clear. Relatives need time to arrive, and the railway has made long-distance attendance possible without making it immediate. The parlour is chosen because it is the household's formal room. Furniture is shifted. The coffin rests where visitors can approach. Flowers soften the space and help with scent. Lamps remain low. Curtains close the room from the street. Though neighbours know what has happened because news travels quickly around illness and death. The room changes without moving very far. A chair once used by a caller now holds a wreath. The mantel clock, if stopped, marks the hour when time ceased to feel useful. Customs differ among families and communities. Covering mirrors may keep mourners from confronting their own reflections in a room altered by death. Stopping clocks can mark the moment or express the feeling that time has paused. Some households follow these practices. Others do not. America carries funeral traditions shaped by region, religion, ancestry, and local habit. There is no single national parlour obeying one book. What remains common is the transformation of home. Everyday objects become strange because the person who knew them is no longer present. Visitors arrive by their relationship with the family. Some sit for a few minutes. Others remain through the night, keeping watch and helping with practical work. Food appears from neighbouring kitchens. Bread, meat, cake, coffee, or a prepared dish arrives because the household cannot manage every meal. Nobody feels hungry until a plate is placed nearby. Then the living body remembers that grief has not cancelled supper. Children may be included rather than kept away. They see adults mourn and learn that death belongs to family life. The deceased is not removed at once and returned as an arranged mystery. The person remains among familiar walls while farewells are made. This can be difficult, but it can also make loss less abstract. Mourning clothes carry the death into public view. Widows in prosperous and middle-class households may follow long periods of black dress, beginning with dull fabrics and crepe before moving towards softer materials or muted colours. The rules offer a language for sorrow, but they also create expense and pressure. A woman with little money may dye an existing dress or alter what she owns. Men often wear dark suits or black bands for a shorter time. The difference quietly assumes that a widow's identity should remain wrapped in loss longer than a widower's sleeve. Hair jewellery keeps a physical part of the deceased close. Strands can be braided into brooches, rings, bracelets, or framed designs. To a later age, the result may seem unsettling. To the family, hair is personal, durable, and unquestionably real. A lock in a locket carries more intimacy than a printed name. Photographs offer another memory. A portrait may be displayed. Some families arrange a final photograph, though post-mortem photography is not universal and becomes less necessary as ordinary portraits grow more common. Eventually, the funeral procession leaves the house. Carriages follow the hearse while neighbours watch from windows or pavement. When the family returns, the parlour is put back. Chairs move to their usual places. Flowers begin to fade. The clock, if stopped, starts again. The room looks as it did before, which may be the strangest part. You pass the doorway that evening and see furniture holding an unfamiliar emptiness. Death has received its callers. The house must now learn the silence left after they go. At the photographer's studio, you sit before a painted background and arrange your face for the future. By the 1880s, dry photographic plates have reduced exposure times and made portrait work easier than it was in earlier decades. You no longer need to remain motionless for an impossible length of time, but movement can still blur the result. A concealed support may steady the head or back. The photographer adjusts the lens, studies the light, and asks you to remain still. Smiling is possible, though formal expressions remain common. A portrait is expensive enough to matter and permanent enough to deserve composure. Cabinet cards are exchanged among families and displayed in albums or on mantels, allowing your image to visit homes without the inconvenience of your company. In 1888, Kodak begins making amateur photography easier. For now, the professional removes the lens cap. Your personality may resume when the exposure is finished. The studio is arranged around daylight. Tall windows or a glass roof direct soft light toward the sitter, usually from one side. Curtains control its strength. On a dark afternoon, the photographer may move the chair closer to the window or accept a longer exposure. Sunlight remains the most patient employee in the building, although it occasionally refuses to report for work. You are placed beside a table, chair, curtain, painted column, or artificial plant chosen to suggest the proper amount of refinement. The background may show a grand interior, a garden, or distant architecture that has never been troubled by weather. A painted balustrade allows almost anyone to appear connected with an estate for the length of one photograph. The photographer turns your shoulders slightly and tilts the chin. He smooths a sleeve, shifts the chair, and studies the arrangement again. These small changes matter because the picture will be seen more often than the sitting. Clothing must photograph well as fit the occasion. Dark or medium tones often produce reliable results. Some colours appear differently on the plate than the eye expects. A fashionable bustle changes how the body meets the chair, so the fabric and furniture must be arranged together. Jewellery can catch light. A watch chain or brooch adds detail without asking you to move. Children are harder to manage. They blink, turn toward a parent, swing a foot, or discover an urgent thought at the moment stillness is required. The photographer may hide a parent beneath cloth, use a toy near the camera, or wait until curiosity becomes fatigue. Technical skill matters. Patience has saved more family portraits. The camera uses a glass plate coated with a light-sensitive emulsion. Dry plates can be prepared in advance and stored until needed, unlike earlier wet plate methods that required coating, exposing, and developing the plate before it dried. This gives the photographer greater freedom and shortens the sitting. He focuses beneath a dark cloth, where the scene appears upside down on ground glass. You watch his shape disappear behind the camera and wonder whether the apparatus has briefly consumed him. He emerges, inserts the plate holder, and gives the final instruction. A headrest may stand behind the chair, its metal support hidden by your body and the camera angle. It does not clamp the skull in place, despite later stories. It simply helps you remain steady. In good light, the exposure may last only a few seconds. Those seconds grow longer once you are told not to blink. A relaxed smile is difficult to hold without looking strained, and formal portrait customs favour a serious expression. The photograph may mark adulthood, marriage, family standing, or professional success. People do not necessarily feel unhappy. They simply do not believe every permanent record requires visible delight. When the exposure ends, the result is not ready to inspect. The glass plate must be developed in a darkroom with chemicals that reveal the negative image. If you moved, blinked, or changed expression halfway through, another plate may be needed. Retouching is possible. A worker can soften blemishes or lines on the negative with a pencil. Prints may be coloured by hand to add warmth to cheeks, jewellery, or fabric. The camera is praised for truth while the studio improves that truth before delivery. Cabinet cards are larger than the earlier cartes de visite and mounted on stiff card carrying the studio's name. Families order several copies. One goes to parents, another to a sister, and one enters an album beside relatives whose names everyone promises to remember. The card may stand on a mantel for years and watch the room pass through several wallpapers. Photography creates work beyond the person behind the lens. Assistants prepare plates, print images, mount cards, retouch negatives, and manage customers. Women work as colorists, retouchers, receptionists, and photographers, sometimes operating studios of their own. The trade combines chemistry, mechanics, art, and the ability to tell a nervous sitter that the previous expression appeared more natural. In 1888, George Eastman introduces the Kodak camera using roll film, allowing customers to take pictures and send the camera away for processing. Amateur photography will soon move into streets, gardens, holidays, and family life. For this afternoon, however, the professional controls the light. He returns from the darkroom and says the plate is good. You stand, stretch your back, and recover the expression used among living people. In several days, the cards will be ready. Your face will travel through the family in silence, looking better acquainted with marble columns than you have ever been. A high-wheel bicycle stands beside the road with one enormous front wheel and a small rear wheel following behind. To ride it, you climb onto a mounting step, push forward, and rise to a height that makes falling feel unnecessarily ambitious. These machines, often called ordinaries, become symbols of speed, skill, and modern recreation during the early part of the decade. The large wheel travels farther with each turn of the pedals. It also places the rider directly above the point where a stone or rut can end the journey. A sudden stop may send you over the handlebars. By the later 1880s, safety bicycles with two similarly sized wheels, chain drives, and lower seats begin offering a more forgiving arrangement. Cycling clubs grow, road travel changes, and personal movement becomes possible without a horse. You look down from the saddle. Freedom has arrived. It appears to have mistaken height for convenience. The ordinary is direct-driven, which means the pedals turn the large front wheel itself. There are no gears to increase the motion. If you want to travel farther with each stroke, the wheel must grow. Riders choose a size suited to the length of the leg, then sit almost above the axle. From that height, the road appears broad and every loose stone seems to have developed professional intentions. Mounting requires practice. You place one foot on a small step above the rear wheel, push the machine forward, and rise into the saddle while it is already moving. Stopping is equally deliberate. You slow, swing one leg back, find the step, and descend before the bicycle decides to rest without you. The solid rubber tires provide little softness. Cobblestones reach the rider clearly. Ruts pull at the wheel. Mud gathers around the tires and turns an afternoon ride into a private meeting with road conditions. A horse passing nearby may regard the machine with suspicion, which is awkward because the horse occupies more space and has stronger opinions. Riding becomes a public performance. You sit high enough to be seen across a crowd wearing close-fitting trousers or knee breeches suited to movement. Many clubs organize weekend runs, races, dinners, and tours. Members wear badges or uniforms and develop rules for formation, courtesy, and the proper response when one rider has entered a hedge. The road itself remains the greatest opponent. American streets and country routes are designed for horses, wagons, and local patients. Deep sand pulls the wheel sideways. Stone paving shakes the hands and spine. Rain turns dirt into mud that can stop the machine entirely. Cyclists begin demanding smoother public roads, helping to encourage the good roads movement that will grow in the following decade. Farmers and merchants benefit from better surfaces too, though some may wonder why adults have climbed onto delicate wheels merely to discover what wagon drivers already knew about potholes. High-wheel bicycles are used mostly by men who can afford them and accept the risk. Their height, clothing demands, and mounting method make them difficult for many women to ride under the conventions of the day. Tricycles offer a steadier alternative and become popular among some women and older riders. They are heavier, but the rider remains close to the ground, which is an unfashionable advantage until one has experienced a header. The safety bicycle changes the argument. Its wheels are similar in size, and a chain carries power from the pedals to the rear wheel. Gearing provides useful speed without placing the rider over a giant axle. Designs develop through the decade, and the rover pattern introduced in the middle 1880s points toward the familiar modern form. The lower center of gravity makes falls less severe and mounting far easier. The bicycle begins to look less like circus equipment and more like transport. Brakes remain simple and not always reassuring. Some riders slow by resisting the pedals. Others use a spoon brake pressing against the tire. On a hill, judgment matters before speed has gathered. You do not wait until the bottom to become interested in stopping. Lamps are needed after dark. Oil lamps can be attached, adding flame to a machine already asking for balance. Bells warn pedestrians, although the sound does not always explain which direction the danger is approaching from. Riders share roads with animals that can startle at unfamiliar shapes. Courtesy requires slowing and giving space. Enthusiasm sometimes arrives first. The bicycle offers independence because it needs no feed, stable, or driver. Once purchased and maintained, it can carry you beyond the walking range of home. A worker can shorten a journey. A young person can visit friends. A traveller can explore without arranging a horse. 5 miles no longer requires a carriage, though it still requires the road to behave for most of them. Women will gain particular freedom from the safety bicycle in the 1890s, when cycling expands rapidly and clothing begins adapting to movement. In the late 1880s, that change is only beginning. Debate appears at once. Some people praise health and independence. Others worry about posture, clothing, public behavior, and the alarming possibility that women might travel somewhere without first explaining the journey to a horseman. You push the bicycle toward a level stretch and mount again. The pedals turn beneath your feet, air moves across your face, and the town begins falling behind. There is no timetable, fare, or animal waiting to be fed. Then the front wheel meets a small stone and reminds you that liberty is still under mechanical review. Darkness reaches the street, and every patch of indoor light must be created by something that can burn. A gas jet hisses above the room. A kerosene lamp warms the table. Candles wait for hallways, bedrooms, and any moment when the main light fails. Each flame must be lit, trimmed, watched, and extinguished. Soot marks ceilings, oil spills, gas leaks. Curtains, paper, wooden walls, and loose clothing remain ready to turn a small mistake into a neighborhood event. Electric lighting is beginning to brighten selected streets and wealthy interiors, but most households still end the day beside open flame. You lift a lamp and carry it toward the bedroom, shielding the wick from the draft. Outside, carriage wheels grow less frequent. Horses settle in nearby stables. A distant train sounds beyond the dark roofs. The nation has spent the day inventing the future. For tonight, you lower the flame by hand. Before that final walk upstairs, every room must decide how much light it can afford. Gas is available in many cities and larger towns, carried through pipes from a manufactured gas plant. A ceiling fixture or wall bracket provides a steady flame without the need to refill a reservoir. You turn a small key, strike a match, and bring the flame close. Gas emerges with a soft hiss and catches. The light is brighter than a candle, though it also adds heat and consumes air. The room warms slightly and the ceiling begins collecting a faint record of use. Gas fixtures require care. A flame turned too low can go out while gas continues escaping. A loose fitting or damaged pipe creates a smell that should not be dismissed as part of the wallpaper. Leaks can cause illness, fire, or explosion. The system is convenient, but convenience now runs invisibly through the walls, giving the walls a new way to become interesting. Kerosene lamps serve homes beyond gas lines and remain common even where gas is available. Refined petroleum has made lamp fuel cheaper and brighter than many older oils. You fill the reservoir before dark, wipe away any spill, and trim the charred edge of the wick. An uneven wick creates smoke. A wick turned too high blackens the chimney and may produce a flame tall enough to suggest ambition. The glass becomes hot quickly. A cold hand, damp cloth, or sudden knock can crack it. Cleaning the chimney is part of the morning routine. Soot dulls the light so the glass is removed and wiped until clear. The burner gathers residue. The reservoir must be checked for leaks. Poor fuel can burn badly, smell strongly, or make the lamp more dangerous. The object seems simple because its maintenance arrives in small pieces. Miss enough of them, and the parlour begins behaving like a railway carriage that has acquired curtains. Candles remain useful for movement and bedside light. Tallow candles are cheaper but can smell and soften. Wax burns more cleanly and costs more. A holder must be stable and broad enough to catch drips. The flame flickers whenever a door opens. Shadows stretch across the wall, turning furniture into unfamiliar shapes until you remember where the coat was hung. Carrying a candle upstairs leaves one hand occupied and only part of the staircase visible. The safest step is the next one, which is fortunate because it is also the only step receiving light. Matches make lighting easier than older methods, but they bring their own trouble. Some ignite too readily through friction. They must be kept dry, away from children, and somewhere they can be found without searching the kitchen in darkness. A match flares brightly, smells of chemicals, and burns close to the fingers before the wick catches. Fire safety lives inside ordinary habits. Lamps stay away from curtains. Children are warned not to play near them. Wide skirts turn carefully around low tables. Bedrooms require particular caution. Falling asleep beside an open flame is dangerous. Yet entering bed in complete darkness invites a different kind of injury. You place the lamp on a firm surface, prepare the room, and extinguish it only when every other task is finished. Public streets have their own evening workers. Lamplighters move along routes at dusk, opening fixtures and lighting gas lamps one by one. Before dawn, they may return to lower or extinguish them. Electric arc lamps are beginning to replace older systems in selected districts, flooding intersections with white light and leaving deeper shadows beyond it. One street glows with electricity while the next continues beneath gas. Progress does not arrive like sunrise. It appears block by block and sends a bill afterwards. Inside your house, the evening narrows. Dishes are cleared, doors are checked, ashes in the stove are made safe. Each lamp is lowered as the household leaves the room. The parlour disappears first, then the kitchen. You carry the remaining light along the hall, where it reflects faintly from glass and polished wood. In the bedroom, you set it down and prepare for sleep. The wick turns lower. The bright circle contracts across the walls until only the lamp and your hand remain visible. Then the flame vanishes. The room is dark, the house is quiet, and modern America must wait until someone finds the matches in the morning. And now the last lamp has been turned low, the final carriage has rolled beyond the corner, and the 1880s can settle into the dark. The coal stove has stopped asking for attention. The wash basin has spent its water. Somewhere, a calling card rests on a tray, a railway clock continues correcting the sun, and a bottle of medicine remains completely certain about itself, while revealing almost nothing useful. You have moved through a world of soot, stiff clothing, crowded rooms, hard labour, uncertain food, and inventions that often solved one difficulty by introducing two smaller ones. Yet the people who lived inside that world did more than endure its discomforts. They made homes warm with limited fuel. They carried water upstairs, kept children fed, mended worn clothing, wrote letters across long distances, and found companionship where privacy was scarce. Workers stepped away from the machines when the whistle allowed it. Families waited beside sickbeds. Neighbours brought meals and helped one another through days that rarely appeared in official histories. Their resilience was not always grand or dramatic. Often, it looked like lighting the stove again, answering the door, finishing the shift, or placing one more clean cup on the table. As you return gently to the present, notice how many quiet comforts are already near you. Warmth reaches the room without a coal scuttle. Water waits without being pumped or carried. Food can be stored without, depending on a wagon, a frozen lake, and an iceman whose arrival controls the butter. A light can disappear with one small movement, leaving no wick to trim and no glass chimney to clean tomorrow. These things do not make the past foolish, and they do not make the present perfect. They simply remind you that ordinary comfort was built slowly, through labour, care, protest, invention, and lives that kept moving when the day was difficult. Let the streets of 1880s America fade now. The hooves grow softer, the factory windows darken, the railway whistle passes into the distance and leaves the night behind it. You no longer need to watch the stove, protect the lamp, or wonder whether the dentist has prepared his right leg. Your work is finished for tonight. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the blanket settle around you. The room is quiet, the light is gone, and nothing else needs to be carried until morning. Sleep well.